Good Monday evening, everybody. Welcome to Tampa City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak. Here. Young. Here. Viera. Carlson. Here. Clendenin.
Here.
We have physical quorum.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder, this is a budget workshop, our final budget workshop, and we have very specific rules for workshops. Mr. Shelby, would you like to surmise the public speaking rule for workshops?
It's public comment for workshops are limited to the subject of the special call workshops, and members of the public may address City Council once for 3 minutes after the presentations have been made, and the sign-up sheet is located outside the chambers, and that is it in a nutshell.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. A reminder, everybody, we had moved mobility to this workshop, which will include the general fund, police, fire, Parks and Rec, and Convention Center. So that is on our agenda for tonight. I wanted to, just so that we don't have any confusion, at the dais I distributed two proposed resolutions concerning excess revenue, one concerning pavement, one concerning Parks and Rec, just so that you know what that is. That came from me, and I guess we can talk about it as we get further into the budget presentation. But just that you know that that's where that came from. And Clerk, did Sam give you a copy of that? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Okay, without any further ado, let's move on to item number 1. Council will discuss the recommended FY27 budget for City of Tampa. Do we? I have a motion from Councilman Viera to approve the agenda. Second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Council, good evening. Adam Purcell, Transportation Services Director, City of Tampa. In the spirit of the workshop, I had some conversations with council earlier today and made some additions to the PowerPoint to highlight some other topics that were raised as questions. So there's 2 pages in there that I'll highlight on the wolf as I work through that presentation. If I could get the presentation put on the screen, I'll go ahead and jump into the discussion. Thanks for giving me some time tonight. I know my opening Stormwater Act ran a little long last time. I hope to not take 4 hours of your evening. Next slide.
You have a clicker there?
Oh, sorry. Got it. All right. So I've organized my presentation to talk about 3 main focus areas. The first is the paving program. The second is the sidewalk program. And the third is the capital improvement program. To set a frame of reference for paving, I looked back over the last 3 fiscal years and took a look at what we've done from a paving perspective. And on average, annually, we do about 13 paving projects a year. That gets us to almost 60 lane miles of repaving. And typically, the cost has been around $14 million. We understand that we're moving into a period of some uncertainty in budgets. So when we developed our work program within mobility, we set a tentative 2-year paving plan. So you can see the map. It's a little difficult to see on the monitor, but that lays out all of the paving projects that we have planned in the city over the next 2 years. We base that on pavement condition inventory data that we have. Right now we're working to update that inventory, which may update this plan, but right now we've got a 2-year plan with 28 paving projects that covers about 141 lane miles and comes in at about $29 million in total cost. So that's the city paving program. We also have some additional funding that's coming in from outside sources. The transportation settlement provided the city with $21 million. We're working on 7 resurfacing projects under that, and those total about 8.2 miles. So that adds to that total that you see on the left. So over the next 2 years, we're probably looking at closer to about 150 miles of repaving. This is a breakdown of the budget. In FY27, we have an allocation of $5 million for repaving, and we are carrying over about $5.7 million in funding. Some of that is the carryover that was given to us last FY. That will really help us in FY27 to get closer to meeting the need that we have from a funding perspective for paving. We think we can get pretty close to that 50 miles or 55 miles of paving that we're shooting for with the allocation in the budget. I also took a look at sidewalks. So over the past 3 fiscal years, we've built several segments of sidewalk. In the next FY, we're looking at continuing that work. In 2024, there was a $2 million allocation of sidewalk funds to a citywide sidewalk improvement project. That's 3 miles of sidewalks that cover the corridors that are listed below that bullet. We're working, we've been through the CCNA process, we've selected a consultant, and we're working through the negotiation of scope for design versus scope for construction, and really trying to maximize what we get from a construction perspective on that project. I expect that project will advance in 27 into construction. And then what we're trying to do is prime the project pipeline. So as you move things into construction, we need to move other things into design to keep that flow of work steady. We're moving a sidewalk project on Rocky Point Drive, kind of near the Rusty Pelican redevelopment site. So that's going to connect from the Rusty Pelican all the way up to the multimodal trail on State Road 60. We're looking at connecting a sidewalk on North O'Brien down to Laurel. That moves near some of the new development on O'Brien and one of the main access routes to the service workers accessing the airport. And then we've worked with Councilwoman Young and Councilwoman Hurtak and met with the River Grove neighborhood. They have some needs within that neighborhood, and we're working to move that sidewalk project into design for River Grove so that it can then be moved into construction likely in the following FY. You can see here at the bottom the funding balance August 2026. So we're looking at next year of having about $4 million in sidewalk funds. $2 million of that will be those citywide improvements, and then we're going to draw on the other $2 million to help with the design and then fund the construction of those 3 projects I had identified. From a major capital improvements perspective, we're looking at advancing the Sulphur Springs K-8 Safe Routes to Schools project. We had a discussion with council a couple of months ago about that and received additional funding to support that project. Some of those funds are retained in FY27 with the bulk of them pushed to 29. So that's a point where we're trying to initiate the work and then move it into construction. Likely we wouldn't be able to do design and construction in the same year, so I think that works from a project timeline. We're working on the West River build. That's a major capital project that will be completed in FY27. Unite Ashley Drive, that's where we're reconnecting the street grid at the north end of downtown and reconfiguring some of the interstate ramps. That's to support the Army-Navy site redevelopment and the affordable housing that's going in at the north end of downtown. So that project is a priority in mobility. And then when you look at our funding list, it lists these downtown mobility improvements. That's really a reference to our multimodal fees that we collect currently. So those aren't unique projects. Those are funds that we use to fund smaller enhancements like signal improvements, some sidewalk extensions, some other multimodal improvements. So those funds are there and listed as projects. And one of the things I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to the discussion of other major capital projects. So that was a pretty short list of capital work that's going to happen in FY27. And I wanted to talk briefly about some of the other projects that we hear discussed regularly at City Council and let the public and let council know that those projects are still being advanced as well. So if we can go to the Wolf, I've got a slide up there. So the Pathways to Palmetto project, so that's the Complete Streets project in Palmetto Beach, and then the seawall reconstruction. That project is advancing. We're working to coordinate with the Federal Highway Administration. We're still working to finalize our grant agreement with Federal Highway. We started that communication in January of this year. It's still ongoing. We're still working to finalize our grant agreement. But when we do that, that will result in $22.5 million of federal funding to build those complete streets projects on 22nd and 26th, and then the complete street and seawall improvement on Bermuda Boulevard. We'll need to come up with a $6.6 million local match when we actually receive those federal funds. But right now, that's not shown in the work plan because that's something that we haven't received yet. So it's in the works. MacDill Air Force Base access improvements. So those are the improvements on Inner Bay. All of that project right now, so we broke it down into 3 segments. It runs all the way from West Shore to Bay Shore. And we've broken it down into 3 segments. I think it's West Shore to Manhattan, Manhattan to Dale Mabry, and then Dale Mabry to Bayshore. All 3 of those projects are in design right now. We have full funding identified for the construction of segment 2. So that's from Manhattan to Dale Mabry. That's going to happen in 28 and 29. And then segments 1 and segments 3 have partial construction funding in 28 through 29. We've got some time to figure out some of those other pieces so that we can continue to advance that full project to construction. I know Councilman Clendenin, near and dear to his heart, the Tampa streetcar extension study. That's a project that's underway. We are right now in the planning and project definition phase. So that we had advanced a streetcar project several years ago. Some aspects of that project have been modified. We're working to define those new aspects of the project, start to work a full concept up. And we plan to present that to FTA with one of our first meetings occurring in the next month or 2 with FTA to begin to discuss reentry into the FTA small starts process. Project development for that is planned for 27 and 28. So that's project development preliminary engineering. So that'll be once we're in the FTA program. We'll go ahead and continue to work through that. And we plan to go to final design or design build for that project in 29 to 31. Right now, those first 2 phases are fully funded. That last phase is the monster in the room that we're trying to figure out how to fund. So streetcar is advancing. It's a project that's underway. That planning and design activity is funded through the next multiple years. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wolf, aren't I? The other slide that we added in, so the Hannah Avenue mobility improvements, those projects are all in design right now. We've broken that larger project into 4 kind of smaller projects, Hannah Phase 1, Hannah Phase 2. So those are some of our paving and safety improvements. We have an intersection and signal improvement at 30th at Sly, and then there's a 24th Street sidewalk component as part of that project as well. All of those are in design, all of those are funded. The first 3 we expect to be complete this year, and then the 4th, the 24th Street sidewalk, we expect to be completed next year. We are going to fund those projects through a federally funded LAP agreement, so DOT will help coordinate the funding on that. Right now, we have 5.25 committed from the federal funding source, and we've still got to work on that local match. Again, we've got a couple years to get that in place so that we can bring those projects to construction. And then finally, Unite Ashley. This is a project, I touched on it before as part of our capital project. It is receiving funding in FY27. That's where we're reconnecting the grid at the north end of downtown. We expect to take that to design build in FY27. So fall of 27, we're looking at sending that out for design build for the construction activity to commence. That project is estimated to cost $22 million. Right now, we have the $5.3 million federal grant. We have $8 million committed from the CRA. $2 million from 2016 CIT, and right now we still have a gap of $6.7 million in that project that'll need to be closed this time next year to continue to advance it on schedule. I'll go back to the slideshow now. I wanted to set some context for the discussion of transportation by touching on the idea that even in the best fiscal year, even in the year of unconstrained, well, not unconstrained budgets, but less constrained budgets, the need for transportation outpaces the resources that we've been able to provide as a city thus far. I know we had it solved with the All for Transportation tax. That was revoked or removed. So just to help to start to quantify the size of the need here, if you look at the paving activity alone, that first bullet, we have about 2,400 lane miles of roadway. So that's 1,200 centerline miles, assuming about 1 lane in each direction. We've got about 2,400 miles of lanes. If we want to get it on a 25-year repaving cycle, and that's about the useful life of pavement, we're looking at doing almost 100 miles of pavement a year. Looking at a $300,000 cost for that, we're looking at $29 million a year to meet the paving need. And then when we start to look at the sidewalks need, The moves plan that we have, our multimodal master plan, when we start to look at that, it identifies 1,300 miles of sidewalk gaps and then identifies 400 miles of high priority sidewalk gaps. When you start to look at the cost of closing those, somewhere around in $750,000 a mile for a sidewalk, we're approaching $300 million in the total funding need to close the high priority sidewalk gaps in the city. So as we start to advance the discussion of budget, I just want to set kind of a context of the need is immense. We're going to have to be effective in how we approach it. We have more than $50 million in federal funding right now that we've been successful in bringing in that helps supplement the funds that we need to maintain our system. And we'll continue to pursue those federal funds. I know council is looking at additional funding sources like the school speed zone cameras that are really going to help support safety and sidewalk program in the areas of our schools. So we're looking where we can for those funds, but in the context of the discussion, the need is immense. And pending that, open for questions.
Councilman Estapa.
Thank you very much. Just a question. I didn't see it on this presentation, but what happened to Habana Avenue? There was a press conference 3 years ago. I know there was federal funding that came in, so there was a lot of hype about it, but I never heard anything about it again. Is that on the books? Was the project deferred? Was funding moved to something? Do you know anything about it or no?
Brandon, do you know Habana?
So, good evening, Council. Brandon Campbell, Mobility Director. Habana was part of the 2022 Safe Streets for All grant project or program that is still continuing to advance. It's not a fiscal 27 funding allocation, so it didn't come through in some of Adam's earlier material. And then I don't suppose it came up in discussions earlier today with a few of you, but it is still in there.
Do you have a timeline on when anything will begin or no?
So that's another federal grant that we're working with Federal Highway to finalize the grant agreement. So there are 19 roadway segments that are part of that large grant. We hope to have that grant agreement finalized this year and then work to solicit a consultant or a contractor to do a design build for that project. So we, right now, I think we have March targeted for the award of the design build.
So it's a bundle. It wasn't just grant for one road project. It was part of that bigger program. Okay,
Right.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Carlson, Hurtak, Vera, Miranda.
The biggest complaint I get in South Tampa, don't kill the messenger, but the biggest complaint I get is, why is the city spending so much on bicycle lanes instead of roads? Can you, for the public, explain what the budget is for bicycle lanes versus how much the roads are being?
Right, so sometimes, typically, when we go in and install a bicycle lane, it's part of a repaving project. So the cost of marking a bicycle lane is actually incredibly small. I know one point of contention in South Tampa has been El Prado. The cost of retrofitting that, the roadway had poor pavement condition and needed repaved, whether or not.
So the example, sorry to cut you
Yep.
off, but the example right now is Platt Street. So that's been just a painted lane for a long time. Now there's protected lane going in. So can you give us, I don't know how many there are like that, but what the public is saying is, whatever the cost of these bike lanes, and I know there are people that want bike lanes, so I'm not arguing against them, but can you just put in context how much the city's spending on road repair versus bike lane?
I can get that number for you. I don't have a point of comparison at hand that shows how many lane miles of protected bike lanes are being constructed versus lane miles of roadway that are being repaved. I can bring that to you. I don't have it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I
Immediately
imagine
available.
it's small, but it'd be interesting to see it. Also, I have to keep pushing for New Suburb Beautiful. Their roads have been falling apart for 20 years, and somebody a long time ago said you have to cut out the trees. I've talked to several experts and road experts, and the thing is we need to put the bricks back in. That's like $15 million, I think, just for those 3 streets. So I just want to make an argument again for them. The other thing is, so if I recall correctly, Vic B-Day told us years ago that the total deferred maintenance, so you're saying 29 million a year. Somehow I remember a number from a few years ago, like 50 million a year, but if it's 29 million a year now over 25 years, what's the mayor, I think, is proposing 5 million this year, so that would create a $24 million deficit just in 1 year, deferred maintenance in 1 year. Do you all have any idea what the total deferred maintenance is to date on on road repair? I think he
so-
said it was like $2 billion that was deferred up until that point. Do you know what that total number is now?
So I would have to go back and look at the pavement condition inventory and see what segments of roadway are in poor condition. So to get to a 25-year cycle where we would not have a deferred maintenance, that's going to take kind of a continued effort over a long period of time to go back and retrofit. I don't have a number for deferred maintenance.
And does this 25 million then catch up with the deferred maintenance, or does deferred maintenance have to be spent on top of this? This is just what we need to stay even with the breaks in the roads that happen each year.
So this would catch us up. So this would get us on a program where, as we did it, it may take 20 years to catch up, or a decade to get the most severely, the poorest pavement condition areas addressed. So it's going to take a period of time, even with hundreds of millions of dollars, to catch up. We've reduced the paving program from like a 100-year paving cycle to a 50-year paving cycle, and now we need to get it to a 25-year paving cycle.
Yeah,
So-
I know, that was another question I was gonna ask, because I remember it was like 70 or 75 years the last time we talked to. And whatever the deferred maintenance is, it's been building over many years, so that's not a particular criticism of this administration. But I think it's important for the public to know, as we're making choices, if it's $2 billion, then they need to know that's what we need to try to hit as we're trying to move things around. My last question is, do I read this correctly? It says resurfacing for roads is $300,000 per mile, but for sidewalks it's $750,000 per mile?
That's a planning level estimate. So that'll depend upon the context or the condition of the improvement. So when you go in to repave a road, sometimes it's as simple as just replacing the asphalt on top. You grind 3 inches, everything else is fine. You put back 3 inches of asphalt and you're done. Sometimes you go in, you remove the asphalt, and you realize that the road base needs improved as well. So there's some fluctuation in that cost. Same thing with sidewalks. Sometimes you go in, it's flat and level. It's really easy to build a sidewalk. There's no obstructions in the roadway. Other times you go back, there's all kinds of obstructions in the roadway that have to be cleared, and then you have to build drainage or rework drainage to support the sidewalk. So those are planning level estimates, so that's something we kind of look for a long-range budgeting perspective.
So on the $300,000 though, is that anticipating the easy ones, and is there an average that includes the more difficult? Is there difficult ones all over South Tampa?
So I would say that that's a mix of everything. So that $300,000 is a mid-range cost. If you take the most complex and the least complex and kind of put it in the middle, that's a fair means of assessment of per mile
Okay,
cost.
thank you.
If I could add really quickly to that discussion. Typically, when we get to failing pavement conditions and it's a full depth reclamation, so not the procedure that Adam described, but you're actually getting down to the base and redoing the compaction of that base, it's about double.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. If you could go back to the PowerPoint, and then again, it would be helpful if we had page numbers. I think it's page 5, the transportation focus area sidewalks. Yeah, there you go. So Rocky Point Drive,
Right.
that came to us as a part of a rezoning where they wanted to put the sidewalk in and they were going to pay for it. Are we paying for this?
So we're paying for design because it traverses multiple parcels with unique ownership. So to have a developer that owns one parcel come in and design a sidewalk on someone else's property, we didn't think that would make for good neighbors. So we came in and undertook the design effort. So we've got $145,000 allocated for the design of the sidewalk. There are some potential wetland setback permit
yeah.
issues that we're gonna have to work through because there's some mangroves immediately adjacent to the sidewalk. But that will come from the impact fees that
Okay.
are generated by the redevelopment of the site. So the construction will be covered by the developer. The design is something the city undertook.
Okay, because if I just remember correctly, they were willing to pay for the whole thing, and we've got to really grab those opportunities when we have them. I see your point of needing to pay or needing to do the design ourselves, but that shouldn't come out of impact fees. They were willing to put it in as part of the development itself, and the fact that we weren't able to grab that is just Like, it's something that development and growth management, we've got to get better at pulling those. I know that didn't have anything to do with you. Going forward to major capital projects, the Sulphur Springs K-8 safe routes to schools. So you're saying that there isn't room, that there isn't space in this budget to fund those sidewalks?
So I would probably defer to budget and finance on that. That was a project where I know we talked about what an $810,000 allocation. That funding was moved a little bit in the programming of the funding. I don't know if revenue and finance has anything on that, but.
Okay. Because I did notice that, to go to the next one is the MacDill Air Force access improvements. There was $8 million in the CIT for that. As early as, earlier this year. And the fact that we no longer have that 8 million in there, it seems like we have a gap and we've got some money in the CIT that we could, if the Air Force Base access improvements aren't ready to go forward, it seems like we could just share that money with the Sulphur Springs K-8 safe routes to school.
But I think the funding in FY27 for MacDill was pushed forward in the funding program, so it shifted to 28, 29, or a portion of it did. So I don't believe that funding is still available in FY27, but again, I would defer to revenue and finance.
Then I'm just curious where that money went, because again, we had $8 million in the CIT for that. So right now, it doesn't seem like that's been replaced by anything. So I'm going to ask for that. But while we're on this page, the downtown mobility improvements, the signal improvements, are absolutely. This is something that overall I would love to hear from you about what signal improvements planning you're doing. Because again, today, I was on my way down here on Tampa Street and every other stoplight I had to stop at. And it's like, that's not what the plan was. The plan was for you to be able to travel downtown. And Brandon can tell you, I was on my way home last Thursday and I got stuck at a light for 10 minutes. It was at Hillsborough and Highland, and we were just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it was just the strangest thing. I had to call Brandon and be like, "Hey, we've got a problem." And if I hadn't been there, I just don't know what would have happened. How long that would have lasted. So I know that we are desperately in need of upgrades of signals so that so anomalies like that can be seen by our team at the, I forget the name, what you call it.
Traffic management
The
center.
traffic management center, which they do a great job, but obviously our signals are really in need of repair and replacement, or rather replacement, not repair. So could you talk a little bit about that plan? We've heard about paving and sidewalks, but I would say that that's the third most important thing that we really have to focus on if we want to get a handle on the traffic.
Sure. So there are a couple of things involved with the signal system. Of course, one of those being the age of a lot of our infield infrastructure. The boxy signals that you see downtown, those were all installed in 1976, 1977. So they're 50 years old and they are toward the end of their useful life. We are finding that a signal replacement project costs about $1.2 million. And that's for a mast arm signal that's designed to current wind speed specifications of 150 miles per hour. So for that reason, we have been thoughtful about where are there signals that maybe don't need to be signals anymore. We've removed a few of those over the last several years. Again, most of the signals within the city, about half the signals within the city are owned by FDOT, so those are not our assets to maintain. But there is a need, again, sort of hitting on that same theme that outpaces the resources for us to get to those.
So I would just ask, is there a way that we could you do sort of just like you did for paving and sidewalks, like this is the need, this is how much we get, maybe like, I know FDOT does contribute some per year to that. Like, what does that look like? Just to give us an idea.
Sure.
Because I really do believe that with the traffic that we're seeing, that is can be a huge change and help if we have those automated systems that can kind of feel.
Yes, and
Tell.
I would add to that as well. We actually have a new traffic engineer that is starting today. Today. So Margaret, our smart mobility manager, has backfilled some of her staff to help to help with several things, including planning for these types of needs. We also have a general engineering consultant for her team that we are in the process of hiring and getting in place. So those plans will be rolling out in the near term. We've had a little bit of a shortage of resources just on the staff side with her team until very recently. And we're looking forward to working with that filled out team to get some better information exactly speaking to what you are requesting tonight.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'll probably make a request. I'll work with your office to figure out like when that's a reasonable request for us to get.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you guys for your presentation and your specificity, and council for all your comments. I have a couple of questions. For the 30th Segment 2 program that right now I think it's under design, it's going to go from Bougainvillea to Fowler. Where is that construction slated for 2027 or?
I would have to go back and look. I know it's a project that is in design or was in design, should soon be completed. I'm not sure the year it's programmed for construction. I can get you that information.
Okay, yeah, because that's a very important project for my constituents. I know that y'all did some great initial work on 30th on the first half, and I guess this would complete or substantially complete that, and that's a very important corridor, not just a lot of working class, a lot of working families out there, but also a street that our first responders use in District 2 for Tampa Police Department, as well as Station 13. So obviously something that's of critical importance. And so that's good, at least that's in the mix, and that's a design. When I checked it up last, it was about 60% through on design, and I think for construction for 27, so that's a really good thing. In question, what new Tampa resurfacing projects are noted here? I know obviously we just did New Tampa Boulevard, because I'm going to ask about one that I hear a lot about. Is there anything that you're aware of in New Tampa?
Right, so when we look at the condition of the roads in New Tampa, with the infrastructure being newer, we don't have the same need for maintenance. I don't know, I think that we've got New Tampa Boulevard laid out on the map that I showed, but I don't know that we have anything in addition to that in New Tampa.
One thing I'd like for y'all to check up on, and I can work, I know Brandon, are you coming tomorrow to that Easton Park thing?
Yes.
Cut through, sure. Right, you poor thing. And thank you, Brandon, you're always wonderful. Is finishing up Tampa Palms Boulevard. A couple of years ago, we did the first half of Tampa Palms Boulevard. Everybody was thankful for it, including the great Wade Boggs, who lives in Tampa Palms, and finishing up, because the other half is just as bad as the first half. So that is something that I want to put on y'all's radar, and we can talk about that offline, and maybe I can make a motion on that later on if you guys, once we work on that. So, but that's all. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. In fact, Councilman Carlson, Councilman Hurtak, Councilman Maniscalco all touched on things that happened to me the same week. I called the county on Havana, and the first part from Columbus Drive to Tampa Bay Boulevard is theirs. That's what they told me. They paid it. So I said, what about the rest of it? Oh, that's not ours. I said, let me understand this. You go from Havana to Tampa Bay Boulevard and you stop, and then you pick it up on the other side of Hillsborough Avenue, 3 blocks, that's your area, so the middle is ours? And they told me, yes, it is. So from Tampa Bay Boulevard all the way to the other side, 3 blocks north of Hillsborough Avenue belongs to the city. This section belongs to them, only about 5, 6 blocks. So I realized, and I apologize for calling them. However, then on Mr. Carlson's conversation on that street, I had a call from a lady about 2 days ago, I think it was, very nice and very boisterous. She was very upset. It took her 30 minutes to go a very short distance, and the streets were blockaded or something about, so I called you guys, and gentlemen at your division told me very nicely that they were putting down the striping for bicycling, and they should be finished very shortly, and that when they were finished, the roadway would be the same width as it was before they started the striping. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct. Platt is part of the West River Multimodal project, sometimes referred to just as the West River Walk. And we had 2 lanes before, we'll have 2 lanes after. It's rearranging the cross-section of that roadway, but yes.
And the gentleman now on her tax deal on Highlands Avenue, I think it is. I went to Fraternal Order of Police and I cut a shortcut. I want to go through Highland and enjoy myself. Well, when I left Highlands and I turned in and I went about halfway, there's a blinking light and the thing went, boom, stop. And I waited, it wouldn't change. There was only 2 cars, me and another one next to me. And I was there, I wasn't complaining, I was enjoying myself, just relaxing. And all of a sudden, you bring it up, and I tell myself, how coincidental that the 3 council members talked about something that happened to me the same day. So that's what I'm saying. And it's a coincidence, but it's a fact. So I understand what you're saying about the parking and the blinking and so forth, and the light waiting. I waited about it looks like 2 cycles, it wouldn't turn, and finally it said go. But thank you for what you do, and I know that you have almost an impossible job because of the density and the backlog that we have. So I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Young.
Okay, my 2 favorite mobility people. Well, one, I want to thank both of you. I've had separate conversations with both of you prior to this meeting. I want to thank you both because you were very, just clarifying some things. So I really appreciate that. For the roadway resurfacing, is there a list, and I don't know if I've asked you for this already, Brennan, maybe, a list of those resurfacing projects, but like broken out by district? Is that somewhere that can be shared?
I don't know if that's consolidated in one place right now, but we certainly can
Okay.
get those to you.
Okay, that would be very helpful, thank you. Also, I had another question in regards to the sidewalks. So for sidewalks that are maybe just are cracked or need to be fixed, is that included in this, or is that just like a sidewalk maintenance cost? What's that process?
So we do have $700,000 annually that's continued in the budget
Okay.
that we use for sidewalk maintenance. That gets us about 20,000 linear feet of grinding and panel replacement. So where we have trip hazards, where they've been identified in the neighborhoods, we will go out annually and do maintenance work. So that's a separate funding source than new sidewalks. We don't intermingle those dollars.
And can you give like an estimated cost? Like if you had to fix, like say like a cracked sidewalk, like what would be the estimated cost for that?
As far as like a single panel, it can range. So, I would say somewhere, I would look at the sidewalk in Luffy. That's a representation of what it costs the city per linear foot to construct some sidewalks. So about, $220 a linear foot in some circumstances. Sometimes it's a little bit cheaper, sometimes it's a little bit more expensive depending on the context.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my next question, do we know when we will start collecting funds from the speed enforcement cameras?
So I do not, I'm not sure, TPD may speak to that later. I know that they're working to bring the program live. I know we're looking at bringing the ordinance back to you in November to have a discussion of that. I don't believe that program would go live before that, but I'm not sure. I would
Okay.
have to defer to TPD.
Okay, and then my other question, thank you, I know it's not necessarily a FY27 budget item, but thank you for including Pathways to Palmetto. I appreciate that. For the Tampa streetcar extension, is this in conjunction with with RIA, the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator program?
So the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator lets us look at ways to fund our expensive projects. So the streetcar is part of that Regional Infrastructure Accelerator because we need to get creative in how we're going to fund it. So it's listed, it's one of the top 5 projects. It's
Yes.
advanced. Brandon and I just reviewed a draft kind of funding assessment from the consultant. We expect to have a draft report ready in September.
Okay.
That kind of reviews the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator, lets us know what projects were looked at, kind of where we've moved from a long list to a short list. and then some of the potential funding opportunities to advance those projects.
Okay, yes, I was just at the TPO meeting and they presented their, the consultant presented the report, so I wanted to know if that was in connection with that. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Buckle up. So, can you go to the screen that says Transportation Focus Area Roadway Resurfacing? Back up.
I can't
Can we
see
throw the PowerPoint presentation? There we go. There, back up one more, move forward.
this one or the table?
No, the one with the table, with the dollars. It's all about the dollars. Okay, so explain to me how we have not spent, council budgeted money for paving, how we have not spent $5.788 million on paving that we had budgeted and expected roads to be paved with that money in FY '26.
So it's been encumbered into the contracts, but we have not written the contracts to support the work.
Then why are you taking credit for FY '27 with money that this council allocated for FY '26?
Well, so that would be a rollover. It's been encumbered to the contract, but not
You're
yet
you're
spent.
taking that as a win and and estimated funding available for FY '27 as if the administration is coming to this council with more money than they actually have. In reality, they've only allocated $5 million of this budget. The all for transportation money, the $21 million, was that money that was allocated in FY '26 as well? Or is
All
this
for
newfound
transportation,
money?
I believe, was allocated in FY '25 or '26.
I think it's 20, I
So
think it's
once again,
26.
this is money that, okay, I ran on a pave the damn roads budget, so clearly we're not paving the damn roads. I mean, this is money that, I mean, I would give this y'all a D in execution. If this council is giving you guys money and you're failing to spend it, what the heck is going on? I mean, to say that I'm gravely disappointed and look at these figures would be an understatement.
So for FY '26, that was our highest year of paving activity. I want to say, that I showed an average on the previous slide, and that average takes some lower
I
years and
get it,
higher.
and you know, I've been there side by side with you, being a champion of our accomplishments. But again, if this council had we provided the funding to do additional, I mean, you in your own admission talked about, was it $29 million a year? Well, if you haven't been able to spend the money we've been giving you, what difference does it make if I gave you $21.9 million if you're not paving the damn streets?
Right, and I think one of the things we run into a little bit as a department is when we receive a lump sum, we have to expand our contract capacity to help sustain it. So that was one of the delays in advancing the work in the last FY was we were transferred in an additional $5 million, and we had to expand some of the contract capacity. So that slowed us down some and likely led to a delay in ramping up the paving. So in FY '26, we did do almost 80 miles or around 80 miles of paving in the city. So we increased, but to your point, we did not spend the full
$26
allocation.
million of unspent money in '26.
Well, so
That's a lot. That's a lot of damn roads.
So the all for transportation dollars are something that we received, and we've worked pretty quickly to program those. I think Hager has a description. She has a table in her presentation that shows the status of those projects, that they're all in design now. So we haven't sat on that dollar allocation. We've
Adam,
advanced those.
I don't think
Yeah.
I would be as aggrieved if you didn't present this in like this was, with the appearance of misleading, like this was additional. I think that's what set me off, is that this was a win, that you're coming to the city of Tampa, you're coming to city council, and you're speaking to the folks that are driving over crappy roads every day in the city of Tampa, as if we're presenting them with so much additional money in paving, when in actuality, we're not. And then you go to this 2 slides more about the sidewalks. There's still $4 million in sidewalk funding that we haven't spent. How difficult is it to build a damn sidewalk? That we've left $4 million on the table in '26?
So that's where I referenced building the project pipeline. I don't know how much was in the project pipeline, that was ready to go to construction. That's something that we're focused on now, and we're trying to push 3 projects into design so that we can spend those funds.
So we're gonna have to talk, so we need to talk, because, again, by charter, we have the responsibility to pass a budget with expectations of these projects. We're not in charge of actually the execution of this, the administration is, and the mayor's administration is. Clearly, this is a failure in administration. This council stepped up to the plate, budgeted money to pave streets and to build sidewalks, and then there's been a failure in the administration of the execution of this for 12 months. So, it's highly problematic to me. And I'll say that honestly, I started off with this with the $5 million is not enough to make a meaningful dent. As you said, $29 million a year to be able to make a meaningful dent and be able to pay. $5 million is what the administration has proposed for their maintenance needs. If the general fund is growing and several revenue sources are outperforming FY26 expectations, I want to know why paving funding is being reduced to $5 million for FY27. That does not make sense to me, and maybe that's a question for our CFO. And I will say, and I'm going to get further into this later on in this conversation today, but it appears to me, based on hours and hours and hours and hours of research over the last 7 to 10 days, that we're underrepresenting revenues in several areas, including property taxes, interest earnings, licensing, and permits. And how we are underrepresenting revenue. You're depriving the city council of its ability to do the allocation of budget when we have by charter that responsibility to do that. And I have a whole sequence of questions I'm going to ask when I have more time to do that, but I don't want to hog the time when we're talking about paving, because I think this is more globally about general funding. But it appears to me as though there is excess revenue that has not been budgeted, that the $5 million is not sufficient, as you've admitted that we need $29 million just to keep up with it. It's highly disturbing that we've left all this money on the table in FY26, and I would, like I said, I would give that as a report card as a D in execution. So you can't come and say, hey, city, we don't have money. You had money and you failed to pave the roads. Okay, Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. I actually would like the CFO to come up because this is where I'm curious as to where the CIT funding is going this year. So, for example, we talked about the McDill that had $8 million in it. Where is that money going this year?
And I'm Dennis Rahera, Chief Financial Officer. Good evening, Council. And which project is that, ma'am?
The McDill, sorry, gotta dig into my, so when we were talking about the stadium, I showed a piece of paper, and maybe Ms. Sharp will get her hands on it before I get my hands on it. But basically, oh, here it is. CIT projected project list. It says $8 million for City of Tampa MacDill Air Force access improvements. Interbay Boulevard, projected projects for FY27, $8 million. So now there's $8 million, and I'm not really sure where it's going to go. Here, I'm happy to bring it down and put it on the wall. Yeah, I'm good.
Ooh, now I get to see the wheel. You always hear about it, but you never actually get to do it yourself. Okay, there we go.
Boy, I'm sorry, did the CFO print this? I can't see it.
No, I'm probably
Wow.
going to say that that's our office. Apologies. The printer isn't so awesome.
Can we blow it up?
So the one that's hard to see is the Gadsden Park improvement for 1.5 million. So my question is this still the projected total?
Ma'am and Council, my first question is, what's the origin of this product? I don't recognize it.
I think Ms. Kopesky can
Oh,
talk
okay.
to it.
Edgar Kopesky, City Council Budget Analyst. Yes, so initially there was a product that had been worked through originally that showed the 5 years and what was embedded within each of the major categories. And so this was going back to probably several weeks. So this was really a format that I provided to start the dialogue across that says it would be great to now understand, given that we've solidified the most updated version of the plan, how do these things still, but they are not, the whole purpose of this document was to be updated with what reality really is.
Understood. In that case, my request would be to do just that, circle back with an updated copy of this. I simply don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, so we don't have any plans for the you don't know any plans for the CIT, like off the, okay, so when do you believe I could get an updated version of the project list for the CIT?
We could turn that around very quickly, but let me just clarify. So you'd like this format roughly,
Yeah.
and what's actually identified for each department and each year in the CIT?
Yes.
Copy. Okay.
Yeah, and so this was something that we kind of worked out when we were trying to figure out, like, if the raise we're going to get, $20 million from each. Okay. But obviously, it really sounds like we're not going in that direction. So we would have this money, and if we aren't using if we're not using $8 million, I mean, I think some of that might be being used for multimodal network and safety or street resurfacing, but it just seems like if anywhere we can find some money for both sidewalks and resurfacing, if we aren't going to spend it in this mobility section, if we aren't spending it on those access improvements this year, it would be great if we could focus more money on paving and sidewalks, because I totally understand your point, but I also know that we have worked hard to get our paving crews up to speed. I think ideally they want to create a sidewalk team that's similar. I don't know if that's in the plans anymore.
This council suggested that.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's in the plans anymore, but I agree with you. So my point being, if there is money in this mobility portion of the CIT, it should certainly go towards sidewalks and paving. So that's, and then, so yes.
Yes, but if, Ms. Kopesky, if I can get a copy, thank you.
Yeah, I can
we'll
get,
turn it
Ms. Scharf, if you could come in and make a copy for Mr. O'Hara, that would be great.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Yes, I really just wanted to talk about the CIT. That's going to be one of my big things I'm disappointed we aren't going to be able to talk about tonight.
Okay. Councilman Carlson and Councilman Miranda.
Yeah, we just went on we were just talking about a different topic. I was following on what you were talking about, Mr. Chair. One of the things is that the administration has a big PR machine. Frankly, I think later on we ought to talk about zeroing out their budget, but because they work against city council, but not all of them, but some of them do. But there's all these, kind of alluding to what the chair said a little while ago, there's all these announcements about look how much we're doing and isn't this great, but the public sees their roads failing. And so there needs to be a different kind of honest communication. And as this mayor is stepping down, I don't know if there's a way that city council can work with the staff to correct this. Honestly, the perception of the public is this administration is disintegrating in front of them. I'm getting complaints all over the place about the administration not operating correctly. But the one thing that is operating is the PR machine. And the image doesn't match the reality of it. And what we need to do is not set people's expectations that we're doing everything is great, and we're moving forward. We need to make sure we have honest communication with them. And part of that ties into the priorities. Like my colleague, Councilmember Young, asked about splitting up projects per district. The original idea of moves, we were demanding roads 8 years ago when I came on board, and sidewalks and other things. And the administration at the time said, just wait, we'll work on moves. And then like 6 years later, they came up with moves And in the meantime, there was a lot more deferred maintenance. But the idea of moves was that we were supposed to have a plan based on the status of the roads. And, you know, if there are roads that are falling apart, like New Suburb Beautiful, it's got to be some of the worst roads I've ever seen in the world. And even if it's $15 million to restore the bricks, we've got to set that as a priority, because it's not acceptable that people's tires are popping all over the place. And and so, to me, we need to be able to show, just like with the parks plan that we waited forever for, that there's a need, you know, where the engineers have gone through and analyzed the roads and said this road is a 1 and this road is a 3, so we're going to start with the 1 and then do the 3 later. The other thing is you all mentioned all for transportation briefly, and then the 21 million. I just want to remind everybody, the last time it came up, it failed, but the voters did not vote for it. And I think it's because of a badly run campaign. There have been 5 badly run campaigns now. It doesn't mean that the public doesn't want transportation, but we've got to change the way we engage the public on that. And that's nothing to do with this staff, by the way. And we just need to engage the public in a different way so that we can figure out funding sources, because it's not acceptable that we have billions of dollars in backlog. The other thing, my colleague, the chair, talked about money in different places. This administration also is infamous for slush funds, and we need to make sure that there aren't slush funds. And we've tried to find them over various years, but they always seem to pop up with a rabbit out of the hat saying, oh, well, here's money that you all didn't know was here. And somehow we need to be honest and transparent with the public. We city council have been asking for transparency for the whole 8 years of this administration. Now the public is finally seeing the lack of it. It shouldn't taint the staff. We've got a lot of excellent staff on board. As this administration is going out, we on city council and the staff need to make sure we show transparency, even if the administration doesn't. And that means that we need to make sure that we're not hiding slush funds. Thank you.
Go ahead.
And so staff agrees that we need to convey information more effectively. One of the things I'm working on as the Transportation Services Director with Brandon is to develop a quarterly report. So I know we talked previously about the stormwater quarterly report. We had delayed delivery of that because we're working to develop a larger quarterly report that's more comprehensive for the entire department. So that's one of the things we're working on to convey to you, to convey to the public in a magazine level publication each quarter, what we've done in the last quarter as a department, so people have an understanding of what we've done, of where we may be falling behind, and in that way we can work to set and meet expectations. So just a little bit that we are, as a staff, understand that we need to be as transparent as we can, and that's my goal as a director, is to make sure that the public understands why we make a decision. They may not always agree with our decision, but if they understand why we made it and what our basis was for it, I think we're better off. So,
Yeah, just with my communication hat on, I would not do anything that costs money like that, and I wouldn't go through the communication department, because it ends up getting turned into something that it's not. What I would do is just go meet with the public, go around with us. You know, before Mr. Beatty left, I took him on a drive through South Tampa. I showed him all the different places that people were complaining about, but then nothing really happened. And so people's expectations are raised. What we need to do, ideally you'd go with us and go neighborhood by neighborhood or region by region. When Brandon and Yuan go to the stormwater meetings, not the South Howard one, but the other ones, people are really upset, but they like them and trust them. And I think the same thing with you, Adam. So can I say one more thing? I've had complaints even last week that staff complained that the mayor's staff criticize them if we compliment staff. And I think that's a really sad situation, because there are a lot of great staff members, and if I want to compliment a staff member, I think we should be able to do it without the mayor's staff retaliating against them. And I've reported this to the city attorney, and if a staff member gets yelled at or retaliated or discriminated against by one of the mayor's staff members because we compliment you, which is a terrible situation, come to us, come to the city attorney. It's unacceptable. This mayor's a lame duck. We're not going to allow that bad behavior to happen in the next few months. Thank you.
Okay. give me a little bit of deference. I've got a whole bunch of questions for the CFO. And again, this boils down to the premise that I feel like we're underrepresenting revenue. And Mr. O'Hara, you and I had that conversation about this is council's opportunity, one time only, you know, the beginning of the fiscal year when we can budget. And by underrepresenting revenue, it deprives us of our charter entitlement and responsibility to be able to allocate funds. We don't get another bite of this apple. So if you could come up, I'd appreciate it. And it's a long laundry list. I don't know if I can get to it in one question and answer session, but I'll try to. If not, we'll come back, and I'm sure there's going to be some of these answers you're going to have to get back with us on. But these are questions that I have. What is the administration's best estimate today of the total revenue the city will actually receive in FY27? And how does that amount compare to the revenue amount included in the proposed budget? I don't know if are you able to answer that tonight, or you
I am
want to
not.
take an IOU, okay? If the administration's own forecast is higher than the amount being budgeted, why is the difference being excluded from the proposed budget rather than being appropriated by council as a part of the FY27 budget?
Okay.
Assuming you'll take an IOU on that. Silence will assume IOU.
Yes, sir.
Is the purpose of this budgeting less than the administration's reasonable revenue forecast to create a cushion of revenues that are not subject to council's appropriation at the beginning of the fiscal year?
I can answer that one now.
Go ahead.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Then what would be the purpose?
The purpose, if any, is to err on the conservative side. Again, we practice conservative financial management, and that includes our revenue projections, sir.
Okay, so I had a question that I anticipated that answer, but I'll answer my question after that in just a few minutes. How many millions of dollars does the administration currently expect to collect in FY27 that are not reflected in the proposed budget?
Again, I'll have to.
Okay, I understand.
But
Once those revenues are received, who has the authority to determine how those additional revenues are spent?
Once the revenues are received and recognized, in order to appropriate those revenues, we have to have approval from city council.
But only the administration can initiate that, and with only asking, we can't compare one apples and oranges. So the administration has to prepare a budget amendment, and we decide on that based up or down on that budget. I can't look at a spectrum of things and evaluate one project over another. In other words, because council can't initiate mid-cycle budget initiatives. I think it's a rhetorical question.
I believe it is, sir, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, that would be my next question is, does the administration have the sole authority to initiate budget amendments? Yes, they do. If the mayor's proposed budget intentionally understates reasonably anticipated revenues, doesn't that have the practical effect of reducing the amount of revenue that is presented to council for appropriations when council exercises its budget authority? And I guess that's kind of a rhetorical question too, because if it's underrepresented, yes, it does. Would you agree that if revenues are reasonably expected to be received but are intentionally left out of the proposed budget, council is not being asked to make an appropriation decision concerning those revenues at the beginning of the fiscal year?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say that I think the key word in that particular question is intentionally.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think we can get to that too about some of what the intentions are, because I think some are readily apparent and some are practiced fiscal year after. The 95% is one thing I would say.
Correct. Yes.
You should get sworn affidavits.
So what is the policy justification? Here we go to 95%. What is the policy justification for budgeting 95% or whatever percentage the administration is actually using of reasonably anticipated revenue rather than budgeting 100% of the best supported revenue forecast and allowing council to decide how that revenue should be appropriated?
The 95% specifically for property tax revenue is the statutory limit.
Only for counties,
Only for counties.
not for municipalities.
In that case, I would say we have incorporated that into our policy in the city.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, we have always followed that. If it is just for counties, then, okay.
Yeah, statutory is just for counties, not
Copy.
municipalities.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding. I'm not a lawyer, nor am I a
Again, I'd have to
legislator.
defer to
But based on
city
my
attorney.
lots of hours of
Understood.
research. is that methodology intended to provide the administration with greater flexibility or control over revenues that exceed the amount included in the adopted budget?
Not to my knowledge. And off the top of my head, I can say our emphasis in the city of Tampa has always been to account for early payment, which achieves a discount and thus lesser property tax revenues.
Okay, and so I get this, and this gets back to the conservative budgeting hypothesis. I understand that the desire to be for being conservative, but if the administration's conservative estimate is intentionally below its own best actual estimate of actual revenues, isn't the consequence of that the difference becomes revenue that is not subject to council's initial appropriation decision? And I think this boils into that conversation you and I had.
Agreed, sir.
Okay. And so why shouldn't council have the opportunity to decide how that money should be allocated when it adopts the budget? Point taken?
Point taken.
Yeah. Can the administration provide council with the methodology it used to determine the FY27 revenue estimates, including the actual FY26 collections? This will be an IOU. Including the actual FY26 collections, the FY26 revised forecast, the administration's current 27 revenue forecast, and the amount ultimately included in the proposed budget for each major revenue source. And I said, if the administration's actual FY27 revenue forecast before applying the city's 95% budget policy shows that the city reasonably expects to collect more revenue than is being presented to council for appropriation, why shouldn't that reasonably anticipated revenue be disclosed to council and considered as part of council's initial budget decisions rather than being left outside the appropriations and potentially made available for the administration allocation later in the fiscal year?
Understood.
Okay. And then can you provide the council with the amount, the 27 revenue that the administration expects to collect but is intentionally excluded from the proposed budget because of the 95% assumption? So what is outstanding of what you require?
We can.
Okay. So additional request. I'd like you to provide the 27 revenue forecasting model, not the published budget, but the forecasting model that you used. What is the underlying calculations used by Revenue and Finance?
I apologize, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. When you say model, are you confining the question to property tax revenue?
For all revenue, because what I've seen is as with utility, I mean, across a couple of revenue streams I'd like to identify. So really the revenue forecasting model across all lines of revenue. Okay. What is the underlying calculations used by Revenue and Finance for each of the major revenue sources? The gross anticipated revenue, the budgeted revenue, what percentage of a haircut you used when you prepared this 27 budget, the reason for the haircut for each line, the historical collection rate, the 26 actual to date number, the 26 projected year end, and the 27 forecast as we previously discussed. I'd also like y'all to provide the historical property tax collection rates from 21 to 26, the certified tax levy minus the statutory uncollectible adjustments versus actual cash collections. So the actual collection percentage, not the budget versus actual.
Okay.
I'd like the administration to provide the original 27 forecast that you used before application of the city's 95% budget policy. I think we talked about that already. And what did the administration forecast 27 property tax collections would be? So what was the forecast that you anticipated they'd be?
Understood.
The current investment yield and cash balances for our interest income. Why is 27 permit revenue below the 26 projected level? Do you know that?
I do not.
Okay. What portion of 26 franchise fees are outperforming is recurring? What is the recurring part that's outperforming? Just so we have a complete picture. Sure, I'll give it to you. I'll email a copy to council. The history of year-end budget amendments from 21 to 26. So we can see a history of budget amendments from 21 to 26. And again, I want to say if council were to appropriate expenditures based on the lower estimate, council doesn't appropriate money for additional paving. We don't get to the opportunity to appropriate money for additional paving, parks, or infrastructure. If the revenues subsequently come in higher than the administration then the greater discretion over these funds subsequent to budget amendments and resolutions obviously go to the administration. As I said earlier in our discussion, I put forth two proposed resolutions for council's consideration, not tonight because of course we're not taking action. One would be a binding resolution that would be attached to the FY27 budget with triggers for evaluations after first, second, and third quarter to do actual revenue forecasting versus and actual data versus what had been forecast in this budget, and creating a binding agreement between this council and the administration to fund additional money for paving. That would be the first resolution that I will propose when we actually have this meeting to be attached to the budget. And the second would be for the for an additional 20 million after the first 10 to go to parks and recreation. So I've included that for you guys to look at that between meetings. And again, subsequently, we can have that further discussion when we actually get to a budget meeting. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Are you, is that going to be a motion? Would you like me to?
Well, we can't do the motion tonight because of the workshop. So it'll be when we do.
No, I'm talking about all of the requests you had. Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Do you need that in a motion, or can you take that as a?
I was going to look at the minutes.
Okay.
At least do unanimous consent or something.
Yeah, I would really like a motion because
Okay.
a motion requires
Okay.
dates.
So, okay,
and
I have.
specificity, and then maybe what you could do is have Sam make a copy of that for all of us, for the clerk,
And I'll
and
give
for
it
the
to you as
CFO.
well, yes, so.
And for Ms. Capesky.
Okay, unanimous consent, hearing no dissent.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
And so you're going to provide those questions to the chief financial officer?
I'll provide to the clerk, the chief financial officer, and I will email all 7 members of council.
And Ms. Capesky?
And Ms. Kapesky.
And it's your request?
And when I say I mean Sam will do that.
And it's, sorry, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, and it is council's consensus that these questions will be discussed at the first budget public hearing?
That would my intent, yes.
So then I have a motion from
It's not, I think it's acceptable just to do it on the basis
Okay.
of consensus at this point in time.
Okay.
Everybody knows what the expectation is. Mr. O'Hara, do you have any questions or concerns with regard to that?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make sure I get you so that you don't
Thank
have to
you,
worry
sir.
about reviewing those minutes. I'll get you the
Thank
notes. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what you were saying, I personally don't want to wait till the first budget workshop. I think it's going to be too late. I would recommend maybe putting another workshop on the agenda. And I hate to do it, but I really feel like we need some answers before we have a vote. Like, I can't vote yes or no and get that information directly at the time, because as you saw, we received some of the data we needed 12 minutes before we sat down tonight. So, just gonna throw that. I'll let you percolate on that. But really, my question would be for the mobility team again, I do know, and I appreciate that it may take some time to get going and plan to do these things, but if we were to find more money for paving this year, do we think we could pave more than $5 million worth of paving?
We will pave more. That's,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
right, sorry, Adam Purcell, Transportation Service Director. So that, if additional funds, so we've had an opportunity to increase our contract capacity. We
Okay.
have some increased contract capacity. We've been through that exercise. If we have to replicate that to again increase contract capacity, we should be able to do it more quickly, and we should be able to get that paving done more quickly.
Okay. So, but also knowing that now we have 2 paving teams, are those fully staffed?
So, I don't know. Yes. Brian? Okay, yeah. So Brian Rogers is the Maintenance and Operations Director. Both
Okay.
teams are fully staffed.
They are fully staffed?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need a third team? Or is really just, because as we talked about, this is a systemic issue. This is not something, and so I hesitate to keep saying we can use contracts, which again, in the short term, but really when we're talking about trying to stand up in the next several years a really robust, more than $5 million a year paving program,
Yes, I would say if we're looking at the potential for additional paving teams, we could use additional in-house paving capacity, but I do need to talk a little bit about what that entails, including that our facility right now is pretty packed out. We may actually have to have additional space for the teams and for the equipment. There's quite a bit of ramp-up time for adding both. So
Okay.
I would say we could not, I couldn't come here and tell you that if we had the funds for a third crew, that we would be at full production by the end of next fiscal year.
No, and but that's why I'm asking. So that's something that if we can get more money and we can get the contracts going a bit smoother, ideally we could do that in the next couple of years.
Yes, provided there's a sustainable funding source behind it,
Yeah,
of course.
exactly. But I mean, you're hearing the will of this council is that we want that to be a thing. How much money can you handle? I mean, that's a really hard and very loaded question, but right now, the administration has only budgeted $5 million, and this council really believes that we need to do more. If we were able to double that and get $10 million, would that be something that you could reasonably accommodate?
I believe we could. I will again say, Adam already mentioned that these projects often take some time for planning and design. And in particular, just coming back to those 7 projects that are funded by that All for Transportation money, because those are, discrete efforts that we're all sort of aware of. We started the design process early this year. That's about a 9 to 12 month design process for each of those. And that's the smallest cost of all of the actual delivery of the projects. So yes, I do believe if we had $10 million, we could put that to good use. We're going to tax our 2 paving teams regardless, and we have contract capacity to continue pushing forward on some of the projects that are in the pipeline. Adam mentioned we've got sort of a 2-year right now program that we're working toward. We could probably advance some of those that otherwise would be in fiscal 28.
Okay, and then just one more question. Same thing for sidewalks. Only $700,000. What could we reasonably expect what kind of money? I mean, and I hate to say like another $700,000 because to me that's just woefully inadequate. If we were able to give you $1.3 million to make it a nice round $2 million, is that something that you would be able to do something with this year?
Again, because sidewalks actually do tend to be fairly complicated designs, often it looks like, hey, there's just bare ground here, but there's a matter of utility relocation and sometimes drainage impacts. Generally, our sidewalk projects take longer than 1 fiscal year to execute from planning through construction.
But
we could get that going.
Yeah, but that's
with
yeah.
any number, with any amount, really, we could get the designs underway.
Because right now you had the $4 million that's coming over from last year that's been allocated. It's got a space. It's encumbered, but it's not spent yet.
Sure.
So if we were to get you 1.3 to get started on the next round, would that be something we could do?
Yes, it may.
Okay.
Again, we may be standing here next year saying that money is being carried over to fiscal 28 because construction has not yet begun.
Yes, but we've gotten through the design and the
Correct.
other portions. And I think that's really what you're hearing from us is we don't just want to fund what's possible. If you're telling us it's going to take a year to get it done, then let's fund it ahead of time. Let's get it going. Because only less than $6 million for both of these departments is just unacceptable.
Right, and we're working through the process right now of preparing for the school speed zone camera funds, so that if those come to reality for mobility, the capacity is going to need to be increased through likely consultant services. We have a Vision Zero team, we have in-house planners and engineers that can work with safety, but the volume of work that would come with a $10 million, allocation, that's something that we're planning now on how to increase the capacity to support that effort.
Yes, but we don't want that to replace sidewalk funding. We're not going to school lottery this.
Right.
We're not going to take that money and that be all we spend on sidewalks. Obviously, school sidewalks are very important. It's something we want to focus on, but it shouldn't be at the detriment of other sidewalks as well. So I think that we'll want to see the both approach. I don't believe in the lottery system of funding.
Okay, we are going, I've got Councilman Carlson and Councilman Miranda, and if there's no other questions after that, we're gonna take a break. There is, by the way, some nourishment in the back. So, Councilman Carlson, then Miranda, and I have to step out for a second.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, not meaning to disparage anybody, but the internal crews, they do the more light repaving, not the deep part, right?
Yes. Full depth reclamation is always contractor driven, and our in-house crews tend to focus mostly on our neighborhood streets program. Again, because the offer transportation segments are sort of that example right in front of us, those are a little bit more complicated projects, and those will likely be out for contractor performance, and they're funded healthily enough that we can.
So I just want to make sure, and again, going back to the PR spin versus what you guys do every day, that as we're talking, as the PR people are talking about miles and miles and how great the city's doing, there are a lot of places like New Suburb Beautiful that have really deep issues, and we need to not skip over those so that we can talk about the miles. And I know that's not your issue, but we need to make sure that we're contracting with folks and doing that. It's great that we're moving fast on the regular repaving. Another thing is, I'll just stop. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I think you're looking at you said you had 96 miles paved for $5 million, is that it?
I'm not sure
If
what.
I remember the
So
conversation
the last
earlier about
slide,
an hour
we
ago.
talked about 96 miles needed to be paved each year for about $29 million.
How much?
About $29 million.
$29 million. So then, if you had 5 into 30, whatever it is, you can do how many miles if you had another $20 million or $10 million? Half of 96 would be 45 added to the 96 or something like that?
Right, so with design and construction, we're looking at about $300 million, or $300,000 a lane mile. So whatever additional
200,000.
funding that would be.
So it's about
divided by-
200,000 a mile?
Yeah, $300,000 a mile.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Just in time for you.
Okay, it is 6:26. We're gonna be on break until 7 o'clock. Yeah.
But yes, I was just, so I mean, he doesn't need to know if I need to, because I saw it when I was up there, I was looking through it, and I saw we had this, but I don't know what it is, so that's, but we'll see if we can find.
I'll let him know, it might be an easy button over.
Yeah, and then, well, and Kelly's gonna look for it too, so between the two of them, we'll figure it out. I'm making a stink because they have not had second reading on the rules and procedures, which means that they are supposed to take public comment after every item during the workshop. So they can't change the procedure without vote.
So do you think we'll be able to speak after?
I'm gonna go find Marty.
That would be great. There's not many of us.
No, it's right. And see, I don't understand, last time we had a workshop, last Monday, they voted to do that, and I'm like, but that's already the policy. The rules and procedures have not changed yet.
what Fran said, but. Procedurally, Stephanie, you seem correct, so. Stephanie, is there something specific
You could sit on top of the podium, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, the gentleman that was here in front that wanted to speak up.
Technically, in the world of accounting,
Now, I
you're
don't
supposed to do.
complain too much because it's going back into stormwater, but my problem
But
is,
did you?
why did they take it out of
But
storm?
did you email them and ask them the
I
question?
certainly did. I get no answers.
From who?
Well, actually, I didn't know who to address it to. I did address it to the city council.
Right, but
I know.
you gotta ask the person who can answer the question, which would be
Okay.
Arrow or Mike Perry. Mike Perry's probably the best person.
Okay, well, I will those things, that's.
To ride, no, you gotta be, you
No,
know,
it wasn't
brave
that, it
to
was the
ride a
last one.
bicycle on the street here.
These days.
Even if you got on a uniform.
What's funny is, the bike instructor here in the city said, you can't go out there on a bike. I said, it's 7 years old, so it's self-response. And I have a gun on, I don't even need a helmet. Just turn me loose.
Exactly.
I came up with the other day, somebody was talking about drugs, and they said, "This has to have a liability."
trust us. I want to get rid of everything. That's the. 22nd. Yeah, I'll bring it.
Y'all ready? Hello, thank you for your patience. Welcome back to Tampa City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak. Here. Young. Here. Viera. Carlson. Clendenin.
Here.
We have physical quorum.
I would like to entertain a motion from council to hear Convention Center first. It's a very small presentation to keep from having to hang out. I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilman Carlson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Let's talk about the Convention Center.
Good evening, Council. David Ingram, Executive Director of the Tampa Convention Center. Tonight, I'm going to give you an overview of the Convention Center's 27 budget. If I could have up the presentation, please. I promise not to go more than 5 hours.
We have a rule that we stop by 1.
Why would you disappoint us?
Whatever you need, I can go even longer if you need to. So just want to touch base, as everybody knows, the Convention Center does create revenue for ourselves. They do it in 2 ways. One, we do our rental for the facility, as well as we do commissions from our partners that do billing for our services on property. The total this year that we're looking for is roughly $15.7 million. That's a 1% increase over last year's of 15.5. Those are our base budgets. The reason why we went conservative, unfortunately, we are no longer hosting AP reading going forward, and that show alone brings about $1 million in commissions for us. So instead of trying to overshoot and outreach our projections, we went with a standard 1% of getting a somewhat slight increase and still cover our expenditures. So moving into our operating expenses, as you can see, these are our cost centers. The total that we're requesting this year is $15.8 million. That's a slight decrease from both our fiscal year 26 adopted budget as well as our current projection path that we're on of $15.9 million. And last but not least, we'd like to ask for a capital program this year. We're looking at asking for $2.9 million. $1.4 million of that helps us continue our electrical primary distribution replacement. The remaining $1.5 million helps us start replacing our storefront with hurricane-rated doors and windows. What we also did is we put in our projected future fiscal requests to complete the projects, knowing that it's going to be contingent on the year that they're in, if it's approved or not based on finances. So I wanted to give you a high overview. I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Councilman Miranda, you have questions?
No, I just want to say that convention center has been a godsend. I remember when it was there by itself without no convention hotels. And the city struggled dearly. And through efforts like yourself and others before you, and the hotels that came in, the Marriott was the first, and then they spun others that came in, it has done fantastically. And I'm very proud of what you and your crew have done.
Thank you.
Councilman Young, then Hurtak.
No, I just wanted to say, I actually was just at the convention center because the Shriners are in town, and this is their 5th time that they've been to Tampa. You know, they have different groups, or around, in different states, and I was talking with one of the organizers, and they said, a lot of people want to host in their city, but they don't really have the space, whether it be, the hotels or space to hold everyone. I think they have about 9,000 or 10,000 people that are in the city, and so they keep coming because we're able to host them here, and they actually really enjoy being in the convention center. So just you all got a lot of praises today.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. Can you talk to me a little bit about the hurricane-rated storefront replacement?
Sure. What we did is we did a facility assessment, and what came back is the 36-year-old storefront that we have, which are basically doors and windows. In order to get safer and more protected, they recommended that we end up replacing those to a more modern grade for hurricane rated.
So it's not a Storefront meaning just how people get into the convention center.
Correct. It's actually all our windows and doors throughout the facility, and the way we did it, we were able to structure that so that if we needed to do the first level, we could do the first level. Have funding the next couple years, we could do the second level. As you can see, keep going up until we're actually taken care of.
And just what about the overall, just hardening of the convention center? I mean, wasn't it the air conditioning system that flooded?
That is correct. We
Can
did
you
have our
tell us
chiller
a little,
plants.
remind us a little bit about that and what we can do to harden the convention center going forward?
So part of the hardening is changing out the doors and windows. And then for our plant, the one that we are actually working on now is partnering with one of our contractors to bring in the aquafence similar to TGH. Sorry, drew a blank there. For TGH to actually protect the chiller units and go from there. We can't do the entire capacity, we can't do a entire around the building because ultimately at the end of the day, that would be too much. So we're really focusing on our chiller plant, which is down on the first level of the garage, and then some of the storefront, which along Franklin, should we get that far.
Have you considered relocate, I mean, I know it's a lot of costs and a lot of drama, but have you considered relocating the chiller?
Part of it is there's twofold. One, we can protect it until we actually get the ability to actually get the funding to do it.
Okay.
It's taking them off the floor and putting them up on the ceiling, so that gives that 4 to 5 foot ceiling clearance, but having the aquafence still gives an extra added bonus to make sure that it's hardened.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, because I think the aquafence is useful, but we also have to remember that the aquafence does not prevent water from coming in, it displaces it to somewhere else.
Correct.
And I think we need to keep in mind the places that aren't gonna be able to be protected, that will get that additional water. So just, thinking about that, thank you.
Sure.
Well, again, congratulations on another good year for the convention center. Good job on what you guys are doing. When would we, and maybe I've missed this, for the CIP for potential and much needed expansion, what year do you think we'll start seeing that show up in a CIP?
For expansion or from replacement? Because there's two pieces.
Expansion of the convention center for larger space.
So we just did our presentation to the TDC to give them the report that I gave you guys back in June. And then depending on what happens with our friends, the Rays, we'll start moving that direction into whether we have the ability to tap into the tourist development tax, or as the next council comes in, start prepping them to start moving into an expansion.
So you think, 29?
29 to put shovels in the ground or to actually talk about expansion?
29 for talking about expansion.
My goal is to actually start talking in the end of 27, beginning of 28.
Okay.
Again, contingent on what happens to November's vote.
So with that, what would be, if we were talking about that in 27, when would you have shovels in the ground?
If wishes were fishes and everything put right into play, you're probably looking at the beginning of 29.
Can we get that on the sign above the garage?
If wishes
you
were
walk in?
fishes?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be a great sign. Well, thank you very much. Councilman Miranda.
I was just gonna bring up the expansion of it because it's what, a 220,000 square foot convention center?
For us, total capacity is 600,000 square feet. The exhibit hall is 200,000.
Yeah, but we gotta go to about 500,000. We'll be competitive because sooner or later, you're gonna have competition from somewhere in the west of us. And they have beautiful beaches. And we say they're ours, but they're not. But anyway, it's a wonderful thing. And what you guys do, the courtesy, the professionalism that I've seen there, along with the hotels that are coming in, that's what makes downtown what it is.
Thank you.
Councilman Miranda, there is no competition. We are Tampa. There you go. Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Okay. So check one off the list. So now we are going to move to police.
Good evening, Council. Brett Owen, Acting Chief of Police. Get our presentation up here.
Okay, it's coming up.
All right. So just a quick overview. Currently, we are authorized for 1,016 officers. We have 312 professional staff, 144 reserve officers with 28 current vacancies. Just last week, we signed off on the hire of those 28 vacancies, so they should be filled by the end of the year. Response times, we are still roughly half of what our desired goal is. So our required is 8 minutes. We're at about 4.25 minutes to actually receive it to arrive on scene for a priority one. We're just over 7 minutes for priority 2, and our goal would be 12. And then priority 3 allows for 60 minutes, and we're just shy at 10 minutes. So we're doing very well on our response times. Calls for service are pretty well flat from last year to this year, down around 700 calls, but our self-initiated calls are up about 16,000. So quite happy with the productivity that our officers are putting out there and the lack of calls for service. Some of the wellness initiatives that we've done this year, we instituted Sharp Performance. That is a mobile application that allows for coaching. The officers can sign up on their own for some guidance that they can get outside of the department. It's a platform that was built for first responders. We also implemented Mindbase. That works off of the calls for service, specifically looking at the type of calls that officers go to kind of let us know if there's somebody that may need some guidance or some kind of review based on the calls that they've handled. And then we have our Drone as First Responder program. We would like to continue our efforts with that and get that program expanded beyond the 2 sites that we currently have. We're pretty happy with how that's working so far. As far as the budget goes, we do not have any new FTEs. We're pretty well flat from last year. Overtime budget remained the same, obviously with the contracts increases. It results to about a 4% decrease in what we're actually spending in overtime.
So I have a question. With this evolving technology, what is your projection on discontinuing use of the very costly flight unit and helicopter?
So I think that that's a twofold situation. One, we need more of the DFR programs in order to actually cover the city. Another part of that is our aircraft is aging, so we certainly like to be able to, cycle some of that out. But how quickly we can get this program up and running would largely dictate how quickly we could do that. The other caveat to that is you have to remember, like, we still respond to wildfire situations with a Bambi bucket. It's going to be quite a while before they get a drone that can carry that kind of weight. So we're still
say that again.
The Bambi bucket that carries water, like for wildfires and things like that. Last year and then into this year again, we have seen the heaviest use of the Bambi bucket that we've had in recent history.
How often does that occur?
Well, this summer it's been a lot. It's been almost weekly. But again, that dictates, by year and what the weather conditions are. It's not really something we can control, but we will need some kind of service for that going into it.
Is that something that we would be looking at as a role for our police department versus some other unit? Because again, like you say, the aging equipment, I would think we'd want to cycle out of the helicopter usage.
That would be great when we get to a point where we can, but right now we just don't have the coverage. The current drones that we have only fly about 2 miles from their existing stations, so we need coverage for the city.
I think as we look towards maybe in the next, those of us that may or may not be around, if we look towards the next couple of years, if we look at a longer term cycle of how do we get that? What kind of support you need from council to be able to get that capacity with the emerging technologies? And be able to, because helicopter operations is so dang expensive.
I'm well aware, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Very
We
good.
do have Axon coming later this year to do the study to figure out what the next growth set would be.
Okay,
with the
good,
drones.
good.
So,
I'd be look forward to hearing that report and seeing what that ultimate long-range strategic plan is for that.
Certainly.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
You want to be careful of Axon. They're taking over for Flock.
Oh,
Yeah, just saw reports about that today. So we're going to be really cautious about what we do with Axon moving forward.
and you know how friendly I am to that.
I know, I just wanted to let you know, that just
Yeah.
read about it today.
Okay.
But if you haven't had a chance to go visit the helicopter unit and go up in the helicopter, really good, highly recommend it. It was part of my, ride-alongs before I wasn't allowed to do ride-alongs anymore.
Back when I was an air traffic controller, I used to do that kind of stuff all the time.
I know.
I've spent an adequate
I'm
amount of
sure
time
you
in
have,
sheriff helicopters.
But if anybody else hasn't, I found it really, really valuable, really interesting. And just the ability for them, and I was just gonna reiterate what Acting Chief said of the time and the battery.
We didn't fix the
capacity.
ride-along thing? Is that status still the same?
I guess, I haven't heard back, but,
Okay.
yeah, I guess I could try one and see what happens. But anyway, I would recommend anybody who hasn't done it to just go and see what they handle, because very similarly also went and saw the drone unit, and they have said that is the biggest thing. They can't force the battery to be able to do anything, to go faster. And not only do you have 2 miles, it's only like 20 minutes, isn't it? It's a really short.
It's about 32 minutes, but yeah, so
short
Technology grows
lifespan.
quickly, so I'm sure that the battery life will extend.
And
here in the
as
near future.
anyone who tells you who lives in specifically Riverside Heights, that's where I hear from them the most, they know that that helicopter can be up for hours at all times of the morning. So, yes, but I always tell people there's a reason for that, and that's I mean, the ability to follow and hover and do all of that. They just have the ability that others don't. I'm just gonna put a little bit of love toward the helicopter unit.
It's very expensive.
It is very expensive, but right now we don't have anything to replace it.
Hey, well, maybe we could contract with Ukraine.
I think I didn't have any other questions. Oh, I did. So, and this might be a question for Dennis and not. So, Ms. Kopesky made us, or maybe this is the City of Tampa's budget. Is this from you, Ms. Kopesky?
It's a joint task.
It's a joint task. Okay. So on here on the second page, or the first page, page 2, it talks about revenue, or rather expenses, and how the expensive for operating, the adopted budget of 26 was about $24 million, and the projected is actually 29.5. But here we are going to the recommended again of 23.6. Why are we going down when very clearly the adopted was, $6 million less than what we actually spent? So why would we go backward unless we're planning to cut something?
I'm just answering a quick question.
Council, was that distributed to you tonight? or
Yes.
did you get the
Yes,
previous?
yes.
Yeah, we all
Does-
have a
Does the
copy.
clerk have a copy?
Right.
I don't know if the clerk has a copy.
I can certainly make sure she has one. I'm just trying to catch up to where you are. Let's see.
I think this ties right back into our previous conversations.
Sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my question is if the projected was so much higher, then.
Right, and I'm just scanning here to see a couple of things that have come through around. So when I said this was joint, we had a conversation about some of the variances, and by all means, if I blow this, feel free to jump in. But part of what we saw in the current period was actually talking about some of the cyclical impact of some of the maintenance related to the actual aviation equipment. And so that
Okay.
tends to go up and down. And so part of that is what happened in 26, and will not necessarily be repeating every year or in 27. And then, excuse me,
Because it looks like contract services is what doubled.
right.
If you're looking at page 5, contractual services doubled.
Right. So this is one of those where there was a lot to unpack in here, Councilwoman, so I know that we wanted to have some of these answers, but I would feel better if we don't necessarily, I'm gonna have to follow up with you. Just to make sure that I give you the right answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my only other question is about the capital.
Yep.
I know we've paused, this is page 8. And then if there's a way that we can put this on the Wolf so that the public can see it while we're doing that, that'd be great. So the capital, we're pausing, or no, we're not pausing. This is the Howard Avenue Annex. This is going forward, correct?
Correct.
But are we pausing on these other projects?
So the relocation of TPD impound lot has already happened.
Okay,
That building was demolished as a part of the solid waste project,
yes.
but it will ultimately end up at the Howard Avenue. It's just currently at our headquarters across the street.
But I do
Yes.
believe the public safety facilities, I believe you both had mentioned that that one for now is, I'm gonna say, parked on the side for a bit, in terms of making immediate progress on that. And these other projects, I'll leave this to
Because
you.
it clearly says on the next page, there is no capital investment plan for the police department at FY 27 through 31. And is that mainly a pause because of where we find ourselves with Amendment 3?
It is.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
But I will say that's a concern, just overall. So talk to all your friends, all your relatives. This will be the impact of Amendment 3. Thank you.
Understood.
Councilman Carlson.
If I remember correctly, well, let me back up. The property taxes that are non-CRA all go to police and fire, and then on top of that, we add in 50 or so million additional money. But if I remember correctly, the city is saying that in 3 years, if this amendment passes, that we could be short $80 million, something like that. Wondering, we'll know within a couple months whether it passes or not, and I know that this budget is anticipation of it passing, but what, considering that all of that would come out of police and fire and we have to replace it, is there any kind of scenario thinking that you guys have done for the next couple of years to try to figure out where the money would come from, how we would backfill that, and what we would do?
So we are looking at all of our technologies to see if there's any kind of overlap, something we may be able to eliminate. We are also looking at grant options that are out there, trying to find out where we might be able to get additional monies to carry some of the projects that we wouldn't have to ask the city for money for.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we'll be talking about that.
Certainly.
I mean, I think this begs the answer for our previous discussion with the CFO, across all lines of businesses of the city, is if in fact those answers come back that this budget was anticipated, that the Amendment 3 were to pass, if that was part of the anticipation in this budget, it begs the question of the authority of council in passing that fiscal year budget. So it's unallocated resources that will be mid-year budget cycle that we will not have as the control over, as stated in the charter. But again, not necessarily just for y'all's line of business, but for all. Any other further questions for our men in black?
Can I just add to that? I don't know what we need to do to get control of that, but I'm pretty sure somebody told us in the first meeting, maybe Mr. O'Hara, that it was done with that consideration in mind, and there's going to be anyway, a big chunk of money that will come back in. Remember, we asked the question, well, what projects would you put back in if it comes forward? But what happened, I think it was this past year, is as they came forward with the additional revenues, I don't remember the numbers, but it was something like, hey, guess what? We had 27 million new revenues, and we only spent 24 of it, so you guys have 3 million to decide what to do with. And the question we had was, how come we didn't approve the 24? And maybe we did on an incremental basis, but we need to figure out something. It shouldn't, I don't read the charter that the mayor gets to spend additional funds without our approval or without disclosing to us that it's additional money.
Yeah, there's several things in the charter, but one, I think some of what you were just referring to was capital improvement projects that may or may not be put on hold, waiting pending the.
No, I was talking about the additional.
But I mean, I have concern about it all, and again, that's why I want to make sure that we're covered. Again, council's charter authority, that if we are if the maybe it's unintended consequences of the conservative budget, that we are really giving away our fiscal and fiduciary responsibility as council. Councilwoman Hurtak.
And if you didn't get a chance to look at the reports that CFO gave us, which were early, by the way, because they were supposed to be to us by the 27th, about all the things that are being deferred, it is good and interesting. And I actually, Ms. Scharf and I went through it during our break, and we found that it looks like the CIT, pretty much every single project from police headquarters elevator upgrade to Burrell Park renovations to Gadsden Park improvements to playground surfacing and repair to Jackson Heights security upgrades to public safety communication to the Air Force access improvement to public facilities money. All of that has been put on hold for the raise. So that's about $22 million of money. That's just unacceptable to me. Like, I'm not gonna wait. We're not gonna take away projects from the public because of a baseball team. And that's gonna hurt our public safety. I know it'll have some vehicles, but I'm just, this,
But aren't those
This-
deferrals not, aren't they related to the Amendment 3?
no. The Amendment 3 would have nothing to do with sales tax. This is the CIT. So if you take the piece of, the three-page one, that's from Dennis, about the deferrals. On the last page, it's all the CIT deferrals. It's $22 million of deferral. How do we explain that? I mean, like, I can see the deferral, and again, thank you so much for getting for this to me ahead of time. This is way faster than we expected. But, so this kind of goes to the question I asked earlier about what we are actually funding with the CIT. And the only thing we could find that was going to be funded with the CIT, was $1.5 million for parks, some funds for police and fire vehicles, and the rest in reserve for the raise. Is that correct?
It is partially correct. And if I can provide context, one of the reasons we have held in abeyance the majority of community investment tax projects is not for the discussions with the raise. Again, it is because of the potential success of Amendment 3, and I'll explain why. If Amendment 3 passes, of course, we anticipate we'll lose a large amount of general fund revenue in a very short period of time and continue to lose a large amount of general fund revenue. We may find that some of the projects initially identified for community investment tax now, or some of the funding now needs to go to general fund capital improvement projects because we won't have the general fund anymore. They're interchangeable. You'll have a project that was anticipated to be funded from the general fund, and you'll have a project that was anticipated to be funded from the CIT. And those priorities may change because we will have less general fund revenue.
But to be clear, we can still only spend CIT funds on parks, mobility, T&I, public safety
Yes, ma'am.
vehicles, and public safety facilities. Is
Yes, ma'am.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to say something else?
Yeah.
Councilman Carlson?
I mean, and I think your document was in response to a motion I made. I know it came in
Yes, sir.
just before the meeting, and so I scanned it, but I appreciate you getting in early, but I haven't had a chance to study it because you're early, but thank you for,
Understood.
I think it sounds like we're all requesting it early. But just like you clarified, it's not in anticipation of the raise, it's in anticipation of that, the amendment going through, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I know the administration has they're gonna be announcing in the next few days where they think where they want any raise money to come from. The other thing though, you say general fund, but can you just confirm for the public? The public thinks every time that property taxes go up, or every time they have to pay more than property taxes, that the whole budget goes up. But if I remember, property taxes are only about 20% of the budget, like 400 million or so, not including CRA.
Mm-hmm.
And the budget for police and fire is like 450 million. And so if the police and fire, if property taxes go down by 80, set aside the whole general fund, it's a huge impact on police and fire.
Yes, sir.
And so that's when we would be scrambling because I seem to recall there's some state law that requires us not to reduce police funding. I don't know if that applies in this situation when they're passing this amendment on us. But could you just talk through that real fast? I think the point is that it has an impact on our budget, but out of $2 billion, 80 million is a smaller amount, but out of 400 million, 80 million is a huge amount.
Yes, sir. I'll try to provide some brief context. Again, as you said, after the transfers are made to the community redevelopment agencies, what we get from property tax revenues is under $400 million. And the combined budgets, and that's what I've got off the top of my head, of police and fire rescue is much, much more than that. I think it's $100 million more than that. So in a nutshell, we can't fund police and fire services with just the revenue we get from property taxes. So you're spot on in terms of the potential revenue losses. It'll have a very, very adverse impact on services.
Yeah, just to reiterate, for anyone who's listening, all your property taxes, if you're not in a CRA, all your property taxes go to police and fire, and it's still not enough just to pay police and fire,
Yes,
so
sir.
it's not paying for any of the other services. But an $80 million impact on police and fire is gonna be like 25% or 30%, right? It's a huge impact.
Yeah, beginning in fiscal year '28, we anticipate about 35 to 40 million loss, advancing from there to about 65 million, and then continuing to escalate in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hearing no other questions, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Guess that's my cue. Good evening, Council. Chief Tripp here, Tampa Fire Rescue. So I didn't submit anything because I was going to be present. So if you all have any questions for me, anything that I can provide, I do have information that I submitted to the mayor. So
Maybe we can work from Ms. Kopesky's and CFO's. If you could put that on the
Right.
wall, so we can take a
Go ahead
look.
and jump to the same slide that we were looking at before, which was the walk for the expenses. Now, we can go back if you want, but I'm just trying to kind of get to where we've typically been zoomed in on variances. So in this particular case, actually, I'm going to wait, yep. So this is addressing the change in modest between what we had planned for '26 and then up to the '21 for the projection. And one of the things that I learned that has been happening is just across, the city in general, there has been a pretty substantial upgrade taking place. So most of that other increase over and above the plan for this year really was part of the replacing of these outdated fiber lines, and for which they have several. So now looking forward and you see the drop, this is a pretty clean story in the sense that obviously once we've done the replacement for the fiber optics, it doesn't continue at that level. In addition, you can see, and you probably recall that she had been investing in new bunker gear, and that's very expensive. And so over the last, year to 18 months or so?
it was the second set of bunker gear that
second
was
set, my
part
apologies.
of the
Yep.
contract.
Right. So then you see the 1.9 stepping down because again, we don't need to go into that investment again.
I do have a follow-up question that's
Yes.
not related to the budget, but sort of related. Okay, so it says here on the next page, the capital, that the CAD system has been fully implemented. So is that now in all of the fire engines and the firehouses, and are they using it?
Yes, we're currently working off of the new CAD that went into, went live on June 23rd. So yay, and thank you
Wow.
all for approving that. The men and women love it. It's so much better. We've also seen a definitely change in our response time, so that's going to help out as well. Now, it's implemented, it's working, but we just like ironing out just a couple of crinks here and there. But for the most part, it is up and running. So all the stations, we're on the new system. The old system, we've went ahead and said our grace to it and buried it, so.
So do you think that there will be a time, maybe, you said it started in June, so maybe in January, where you can come and give us sort of an update on the response times and
Yes,
like
so-
how that's helped?
Yes, ma'am. So that's my plan. My plan is
Okay.
to get like a 6 months because right now we're still,
Yeah.
making some changes. So just to come back and give you all an update in 6 months to see how effective this new CAD system is compared to our times, same time last year, just
Yeah.
kind of go along with the months and show how it's made a big difference.
Wow, that's wonderful. I will, Ms. Sharp is listening, she'll write that one down for me unless, Mr. Vieira, unless you would like to. Okay, yeah, so we'll work with your office on that, so
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
very excited. And so that's a giant expense that we won't have again.
Yes. No.
Okay.
We just have the yearly maintenance that comes with that.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I have questions about capital improvement projects. I'm sorry, I have questions about capital improvement projects and I'm assuming some anticipated on the CIT. So let's start downtown with Fire Station 1, expansion, renovation, bay additions, relocating administrative staff. Where is that on your CIP schedule?
So actually with downtown Station 1, I've been working with real estate, and of course the CRA haven't found any place.
Yeah, I've been fully supportive of your position about Fire Station 1 expansion and utilizing that resource to, to meet those needs, with the exception of that. Let me make sure I still am up to date with your position. We have a response time issue on the southern end of Harbor Island for rescue only. Is that correct?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay.
For Harbor Island?
Harbor Island, the southern tip of Harbor Island may be outside of the parameters, maybe for rescue?
No, sir, not
No?
to my knowledge. I have
Okay.
two. I added another, since all of this been going on,
Okay.
I've been seeing what we can do for downtown Tampa. So I've added a new rescue car to Station 1, so right now they have 2 rescue cars running out of it. Also brought the vehicle that was really not in use in upper New Tampa.
Oh, did you? I
I
don't remember any
apologize,
kind
yeah.
of
I'm
conversation
sorry.
about that.
Yeah, but it helps out, with downtown Tampa, and it's an aerial truck too. So of course, we have a lot of high rises here as opposed to up there as well. And so we have been kind of putting another resource together when manpower permits, and that was part of the budget. I asked for some additional staffing to put that unit in service for downtown Tampa to help out.
Okay, because I literally had a conversation today with CRA staff about, they were, talking about property, and all. I go, it's my understanding that we don't need property, we just need improvements on Fire Station 1. And
Well, because we couldn't find any property here, downtown Tampa, upgrading Station 1 and trying to add some additional resources, and that's what I've been doing in the meantime, trying to, do what I can to make that happen. So,
Okay.
and I can come back as well and give you some updated numbers with that unit.
yeah, if you could highlight the service area for Fire Station 1 and the response time to the extremities of that service area, I think that'd be great, so we can anticipate whatever future needs might be there and make sure that we're all up to date with what the position is, the current
Yes, sir.
reality is. That'd be great. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I think the problem with Station 1, though, is that there are like extreme needs in the station itself. The last time I was there, they had replaced some of the sewage pipes, the water pipes, but the smell was still pretty bad.
Yes.
And I have to imagine the mold in the station is not good.
Well, that's why I was wondering about where we
So-
are as a CIP for
Yeah.
Fire Station 1 renovations.
Okay.
So I just don't, I guess my question is, we would need an evaluation to see if renovation is more cost-effective than just building a new one.
Okay.
That's my concern.
But is there enough dirt on that property to build a new one adjacent to on the same dirt?
No, but she has these great portable fire stations that,
I think you would have to relocate some of those apparatus because the bay doors, I think we have, 3, 6, 9, 10 doors, Chief Jenkins? I think it's 10 doors that we have. So we'll have to just take some of the equipment that's not being used to add more. And then, of course, same thing with the dorm area, just to make it feasible for the amount of people that's in there.
Yeah, I'd like to see the long-term anticipated needs and what we're gonna use for CIT to do whatever we need with Fire Station 1. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Councilman Vera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chief, for that, and Acting Chief Owen before that, because I didn't speak on police issues. I think that on Station 1, I'm out of here in 10 weeks, obviously, but I know, right? But just like we really made a focus on 24 and 25 before that for the North Tampa area, I think it really needs to be the next focus for City Council on Station 1 in downtown. I just think that's so, because that's something that goes back all the way to the development of Channelside and Water Street, and, we all have our opinions on what should have happened back in the day on that. I think we should have had something built in there for that area, and I think everybody agrees, and I'm sure you agree, Chief, and you may not be able to say it, whatever. But yeah, obviously that should have happened, but I do think we need to focus on that. You know, this discussion really just highlights with the tax amendment just how detrimental it's going to be to public safety. I know that for police, there were some protections there, which really aren't, they're not protections, because I think per capita in inflation adjustment, you are going to see major police cuts if this passes. That's why you have all the police unions coming out against it. A lot of sheriff associations. You saw Sheriff Grady Judd, who I don't agree with on most things politically, but I really appreciated that he came out against this initiative because I think it's terrible. And for fire, it's even more compelling because I don't think there were any protections in Tallahassee for fire. So it's going to be terrible. So I think that's important to know. I would like to see, if we could do this, you know, Tallahassee to allow us to have 2 separate millage rates, one for public safety, another one for everything else. Because, you know, it would actually fund better all priorities, and you could separately fund public safety through a dedicated revenue source. And I always think that folks don't mind paying another $4 or $5 a month if it means better response times and better treatment for cops and firefighters and all that good stuff. But that's just me. But that's all. Just rambling. Thank you, sir.
I think we have the ability to do that now within the current rules, but you could codify that when you get to Tallahassee, Representative Vera. Okay, hearing no other questions, shall we move on? Without objection, we're moving on.
Oh, that was easy. Thank you.
There you go. Painless. Painless. Chief Tripp is saying, goodness gracious, thank God I'm not Mr. O'Hara. Didn't get that treatment. Okay, what are we up to now? Parks. Parks and Recreation. I love that show. Who's here for Parks? Is Dennis or Mr. Fowler, are you online? Anybody online?
I believe they're virtual.
Mr. Fowler? There he is. I said it 3 times and he appeared.
Good evening, Council. Ted Fowler, Parks and Recreation, Director of Parks and Recreation. I just have a brief...
Hold on, Ted. Can you either speak closer into the mic, or T&I, can you boost up his amplification, please, so we can hear him? If I knew how that worked, I could give you further direction. Let's do a test.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah, a little bit better. But yeah, if you could speak up louder, that'd be great.
Good evening, Council. Ted Fowler, Director of Parks and Recreation. I have a brief overview very quickly, and then I'll get into the questions you may have. For Parks and Recreation, we have 483
Ted,
employees.
it's really, we can't hear you. It's like, I mean, it sounds like you're 100 feet away.
All right, let me see if I can. I don't know if
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. So I have a brief overview very quickly, and then I'll get into the questions everybody has. We have 483 employees in the Parks and Recreation Department. This year in FY26, we successfully launched East Tampa Recreation Complex with a full staff. We also had ribbon cuttings at Kid Mason, Dundee Park, Herman Massey, South Cenas Park. We completed phase 1 of the Musco Lighting Project. And in the coming weeks, we anticipate a ribbon cutting at the Perry Harvey Band Shell. We also had a lot of success with our team programming during the school year and this summer as well. With all the focus on team programming, we enjoyed our highest engagement of teens for our stay and play program during the summer in both enrollment and visits. And for this next fiscal year, we have been tasked with managing and monitoring the special events budget for the city of Tampa. So we are very excited with that opportunity to make sure that our special events go as smoothly as possible. And with the budget we are given, we plan to obviously utilize the operating funds and deliver the highest level of service to all of our communities citywide. And with that, I'll take any questions anybody has.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you for that. It says on one of your slides that the capital improvement delivery, Yellow Jackets baseball complex improvements, Gadsden Park improvements, and Burrell Park projects on schedule and on task. but those were some I just read from that are being paused because of the CIT. How are those being funded?
The Gadsden Park improvements are, some of those are from the $775,000 that council afforded us. However, we're going full ahead, and we met with the community on Friday at Gadsden Park and getting their input and what they want with the additional 1.5, because we're optimists and we feel that if the Amendment 3 doesn't pass, we won't be ready to hit the ground running with both Gadsden Park and Burrell. So we're engaging with the community going forward. They understand what Amendment 3 means if it passes. However, we want to be prepared if it doesn't pass to be able to get those projects going as quickly as possible.
Well, I appreciate that. What can you tell us about Burrell Park?
We have engaged with the community a little bit, and we do have some of their wants and needs, but before we get deep into that process for any capital spending, we're going to have a couple of more meetings with them to sew up what they want. We do have an idea what they want. I can tell you with confidence that one of the biggest things we got from that neighborhood is that whatever we do at that park, they do want a perimeter fence.
Yes.
Not so it looks like a jail. However, so that it does afford us the opportunity to secure the amenities once we beautify that project.
Yes, I have been to at least one of those public meetings. Do you have another public meeting on the books?
We don't. I work with Janelle. It's coming up in the next couple of months before the holidays, but we're going to engage with that community again just to keep the dialogue going and see if anything's changed in the last few months.
Well, that would be wonderful, and please make sure that all of council knows about that meeting update because I definitely would like to attend.
Absolutely.
Councilwoman Young.
No, just to piggyback off of what Councilman Hurtak was saying, I'm happy to hear that, that is a project that is still going through, because I'm sure Ted, we get calls about that park a lot, and so to hear that that is moving forward, I think the community is very excited to hear that. I too, prior to being on council, attended one of those community meetings, and the participation was really great, and they had a lot of ideas of what they wanted to see in that park. So I'm just, thank you for making sure that this is moving forward.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Okay, thank you, Mr. Fowler. Okay.
Thank you.
What do we have left? Anything? Okay, I'm saying, anybody want to say anything on that? All good? Okay, if you are here from the public and, hold on. Internal services personnel investment.
We have a PowerPoint about personnel investment, and I thought that Chief of Staff was going to. I know he had to leave. Did he have to leave? Yeah.
Yeah, he's providing that for your information. He did not intend to make a presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just great. Thank you.
Yes,
and all,
Dennis, did we miss anything else as far as
have
presentation?
all of these been put into the public record?
Hager Kopesky, City Council Budget Analyst. So going all the way back to the initial workshop, there were some tweaks that I know I needed to correct related to making them ADA compliant. And so none of them have gone in yet, but I want to finish getting those corrected and updated, and then I'll put all three.
Well, these aren't from you. This
Oh,
is.
apologize, I thought.
Yeah, this is, no. Yours is.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Did you,
Yours is here, and it's called the General Fund Budget Workshop. We also received individual ones from all of the different
from the
departments.
departmental presentations.
So we have a convention center one, police department one, neighborhood and community affairs, and then this internal services personnel investment. So I just want to make sure that that's available for the public.
Mr. Chairman. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, how was it you received those? Were they all received by council the same way?
They just handed them to us in the meeting.
Yeah, I think they were here when we got here.
And you also, pardon?
Oh,
They're
they
in
are
on
non
this.
base. Okay, sure. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure so that the public knows that they can participate alongside council.
And I apologize. Dennis O'Hara, Chief Financial Officer. I apologize. I thought you were referencing Ms. Kopesky's presentation. Mr. Chair, in answer to your question, I believe council wanted to discuss special events.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Vera.
So if I'm, Mr. Rajero, if I may, if I'm reading this document right for projects in the CIP, is this being delayed by 1 year, or is it, like, what is the forecast on delayed on projects? Is it a general 1 year rule, or is it each project according to their own?
Depends on the project. So.
That's what I thought. Okay, thanks. And we had a long discussion offline on some stuff. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are going to, did you have anything else you wanted to present tonight?
I do not, sir.
Okay, very good. So we've completed the budget workshops. I want to make sure we clarify this. We're going to take public comment just on the budget workshop stuff now. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, very good. So this is the public comment on the budget workshop agenda items. Stephanie Pointer, you're first. Start with your name.
I have emailed you this spreadsheet so that you can manipulate the data as well. Oh, thank you. You know, I'm already having I guess I should take
Start with your name, please.
turn it right side out.
Go.
I'd like to thank Michael Bishop for putting together this spreadsheet for me because I wouldn't have been able to
Is
pull
this
it.
your first time at
Oh,
public
Stephanie
comment?
Pointer. I would not have been able to pull this information myself. I actually couldn't. I pulled everything that was an unassigned fund balance. And I couldn't figure out how to get it out, but Michael Bishop got it for me. So in this unassigned fund balance, I'm going to talk about transportation because I thought that I was going to talk about that in the beginning. First of all, if you've got all this unassigned fund balance, guess who gets to assign it? If you choose to, you do. Go through this money. It's $98 million. Tell them where you want it spent because they said it's unassigned. Why do we have unassigned funds? You tell me. Okay, so the transportation budget. I went through just transportation for the Inner Bay, which is South Tampa. Okay, there's $1.5 million in, or $1.75 million in those funds for that community. Now, mind you, I want to talk about this for just a second. There's a project that was supposed to create 2 lanes right here. When I asked the transportation folks about it last week, I was like, why is this canceled? And they're like, McDill wouldn't give us the land. Wait a minute. This land right here, all of this land is owned by the city of Tampa. So what happened? I've asked retired General Larry Martin to find out, and I've asked Kathy Castor to find out. Because the city was given $340,000 to put those 2 lanes in, and suddenly McDill doesn't want it, makes 0 sense. So that project, I walked it 2022. Now we're going to put it back for another year. We're going to give it $1 million next year. You got to remember that south of Gandy, west of Dale Mabry, since 2018, our jump, not just annually, just the jump is $9 million in property taxes alone. We still don't have a permanent light at Tyson and West Shore, which was mandated that we needed it in 2006. 20 years later, we still don't have it, and we bring in the taxes. Okay, next. I want to know where that $340,000 went. Where'd it go? I asked Kathy Castor. I handed her a note yesterday at her event. TPD has the same number of FTEs this year, but they've got 6 more professionals. What's a professional? I don't know. I'm sure I have all kinds of other crap to talk about, but I've already forgotten because I get all wound up about this stuff. This is the CIT renewal list. This is what I gave to Mr. Babby. Honestly, I cannot for the life of me, I just continue to wonder why we keep pigeonholing money in pots that nobody seems to be able to find. I'm just saying.
Thank you. Fran? Start with your name, please.
Good evening, Fran Tate. Fran Tate, founder and president of Jackson Heights Neighborhood Association, fourth-year member of the East Tampa CRA Community Advisory Committee, recently appointed to Public Nuisance Abatement Board, and second-year member of Transit Now Tampa Bay. I want to put this under the wolf. Yikes. Am I doing that right?
Yep.
Okay. Can't call any names, but thank you to the council member that mentioned sidewalks at schools. I just recently served as a crossing guard at one of the middle schools. This sidewalk separated. The first year, I witnessed 2 people fall to the ground. Last year, 3 children and 1 parent literally falling, tripping and falling down. Somebody could have broke a bone. I documented it and I went to the AP. It's now repaired. I'm suggesting either the SRO or the main maintenance engineer at the school do an inspection of your sidewalks at your school annually. That way we can get on top of stuff like this, because what if somebody had broken a bone, broken their teeth out? What if they had sued? Made a big stink about it in the newspaper. We gotta stay on top of safety issues that we talk about with public safety, up front. We gotta stay on top of stuff like this. I love my little babies, I love my schools. Okay, secondly, I'm here to advocate for funding of bus route number 1 for another year. The ask, 1.35 million is already allocated in the budget, but we need more. We need $1.5 million. Why? According to the HART analysis, Route 1, along with Route 2, have the largest volume of riders, with an increase in weeknight and weekend ridership. For 1 more year, according to HART, it will take $1,405,000. We'd like for you to add another $95,000 for marketing. One more ask. I'd like to advocate once again for an increase in bus shelters. The first year, in 2021, I advocated and received 2 bus shelters in my community, North 34th Street, and I was proud and happy of that. Last year, I advocated even more.
Thank you, Fran.
Received 21 bus shelters.
Thank you, Fran.
We need more bus shelters, please. More bus shelters.
Next
This
speaker,
weather
please.
is grueling.
Start with your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
This is John Stronchak. I'm here to recommend that the city audit Tampa Electric for the fee, the municipal fee that they collect. Because I looked at the budget here, the actual from 2025, and it said about $85 million you guys received from them. But then when I look at their financials, TICO, they said they collected $144 million. So there's a discrepancy. And why is that? I don't know. I called and I talked to Mike Perry, a very nice guy, and I just talked to the CFO, and the CFO said that Mike Perry's running it down now. So he's going to try to find out what's going on with that. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yes, sir.
Next speaker, start with your name. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, somebody left something.
Hand that to Dennis, because I'm going to ask him a question about that one.
Is this yours? Okay. Okay. There is no public trust.
Start with your name, Pam.
Oh, yeah. My name is Pam Canella. Back to the public trust. There is no public trust because we don't know where our money is going. We don't see it going in our neighborhoods. It's definitely not in our stormwater department. Now, what I want to address is the stormwater repairs that are being done, or should be done, not being done, before paving. Because every time we pave, we continually have to rip up our newly paved roads because of the cave-ins from the stormwater pipes that are breaking, so forth and so on. So my point is, if we did our cleaning and maintenance and inspections first, we would know what would be going on. And on El Prado, we have flooding here, and they're doing the bike lanes. And with this bike lanes, thank goodness for that, something good came out of it, they found a pipe. It was a pipe and also the inlet there that caused all that flooding for the decades that we've had flooding there. This is the problem. But we didn't find it because nobody bothered to check until now. Okay, so they had to replace all that. And the reason we didn't have any water going down the drains because they were full of mud, because they were collapsed. Okay, that's the problem we're having. That isn't the only problem. There's also El Prado floods, or has been flooding, because of the construction that's going down the people that are doing the bike lanes and the paving and all that. They're leaving these little green, they're called, I don't know, they're the bags that are supposed to stop stuff from going into the drains. But they're ending up in the drains, okay? What's not ending up in the drains is preventing the water from going down the drains. So now we got flooding, okay? Just telling you all this has to do with stormwater. I tell you what, there's more to be said, because we have all kinds of stormwater issues. We don't know where we don't have the money because we're constantly being told there's no money. We need to find the money because that needs to be our first priority. We can't do anything else without that. That's all I got to say. I'm tired.
Thank you. Michelle? Michelle, start with your name. You have 3 minutes.
I don't start it yet. I always feel like it goes quick. Good evening. My name is Michelle Masha-Tataro. I'm just kind of really listening of the budget, and it's sad because Parks and Recreations got pushed pretty much out of the way, and I don't think that Picnic Island should have been a priority as much as other parks. I don't think Ballast Point, that's a frill. I mean, yes, they're pier, but there's people that rely off parks as a natural resource, and no one has ever once looked. For 6 years, I've been saying something. I'm so grateful that they're going before City Council on the 17th to answer questions. When I asked questions, I got assaulted on Monday. I'm just at a loss of words on what's going on, and if nobody knows, Gene Duncan's husband attacked me. And you know what? I think that I should not have said that, but it's torn between me thinking I'm not going to get my stuff fixed because I can't say nothing. And it came down to a lot for me to handle. And I don't think, that I have to deal with this on my own. And I should have had a lot of backing up. Now I'm finally getting it. And I'm hoping when September 17th comes, they come with a good plan for Tappan Park, because that is our natural resource. That's how we get our water in and out. We have been neglected. We've been destroyed for too long, and I think that we really need help. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to start a petition, and the petition, I'm going to have a whole bunch of people signing it, because it's not fair that all these other parks are getting funded, and this park that is beautiful. We don't even have sidewalks, and they got $625,000 for Tico, the gas lines. We didn't even get nothing in our area, and other places got it. Alloy or something, a park. I'm just saying, make it fair for areas, because I'm a taxpayer, and I don't have no drainage. I think people who have came out there have seen there's no drainage. I have a natural gravity system, and it's getting destroyed by the mangroves uprooted. This getting destroyed. The erosion from the water and the hurricanes makes altering of the water. So when we come on September 17th, I'm praying that we really have something really good.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Michelini.
Good evening, council. First, I want to show you,
Start with your name.
Steve Michelini. I'll show you a picture here. This is this evening, trying to get into downtown on Platt Street. 40 minutes, 40. There's something wrong with the sequencing of these lights. And they are, I don't know if it's on, what's happening with it, but there's problems with northbound on Howard. There's problems with Armenia. There's problems with Platt Street. It's a mess. And I call the signal division and tell them, hey, you're backed up for a mile. And they say, oh, well, we'll look into it. And the sequencing is off. You heard Brandon tell you that it's going to go back to a 2-lane road. Well, you can't get through. There's a difference between capacity and level of service. These streets are now failing. You may have the capacity, but the traffic is not moving. And you need to look into the signal division and sequencing of these lights to see what's going on. You've added on-street parking on some of these areas. The on-street parking doesn't meet technical standards. We've told the transportation department that. They promised to come back and restripe. They haven't done that. You have issues regarding the bicycle lanes that are being installed. And council ought to be able to control when they tell you that they're going to renovate or resurface an area where those bicycle lanes are being installed, because they're just creating havoc. And the DOT has removed bicycle lanes from any grant programs from now on. All grants related have been removed. So they've used that excuse on El Prado that they use grant money, and Pam just told you that it's also created a different kind of problem. You need to look at the technical standards for transportation. When they're putting in sidewalks and pavement, they should be considering and allowing private development people to put in pervious concrete, pervious asphalt. If you do that, it percolates, and it reduces the flooding. You need to ask the question, are there any bonds anticipated being issued for the city to operate under? We've been told the city doesn't have any money, and that they may be using bonds, they may be shifting money from other projects, from parks and everywhere else, to help fund, in particular, the South Howard project. Change those technical standards. You have issues regarding alleys and which ones can be used, which ones can't be used, and we frequently come up to you in zoning hearings trying to sort it out. And you all shouldn't be placed in that position.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Okay, that concludes public comment on this part of our agenda. We're going to move on to parades. Well, actually, before we do that, yeah, exactly. Dennis, Mr. O'Hara, can you come to the podium with that sheet? And I know we've already had this conversation in past iterations, but could you explain, because I'm sure a lot of people that see this would have the same questions that Stephanie Pointer had. Could you explain the unassigned use of fund balances and the county codes there?
Yes, you've got two components. You've got the unassigned fund balance. Let me address that first. It's the 23%, the typical 23% that we discuss annually in terms of, for what I will describe as our savings account. Again, very, very important to our financial sustainability, very, very important to the credit rating agencies, et cetera. It is more than a rainy day fund. It is the bedrock of our conservative financial management policy. I'll expand on that just very little. Again, our policy is 20%. Historically, it's been at least 23, 24%. During the federal relief years associated with the global pandemic, it was about 27, 28%. In the recommended fiscal year 27 budget, we anticipate about 25%. And again, much of the difference or increase from our typical 23% is associated with holding funding in abeyance while we await the result of Amendment 3. I know there were a lot of percentages in there, but does that answer your question?
Mr. Councilman Carlson.
I know I say this every time, but as you said last time, the bond rating agencies now are expecting us to keep 23%. So you mentioned rainy day fund. Right now, the rainy day fund would be 2%, not 25%. Correct? Technically, we could use the 25%, but if we go below 23, our ratings are going to go down, and none of us want to do that because it will cost us a lot more in bonds. So really, if there's now that there's the expectation, because we've been more conservative than the bond rating agencies wanted, we hit 23, and our ratings have gone up in the last few years. So really, our rainy day fund is the 2%, if depending on what happens with the amendment. Correct?
Yes, sir. I would describe the 23% as our floor, and the increment associated with the 25%, that 2%. Agreed.
So if we wanted a real rainy day fund, it would have to be maybe more than the 2%, but maybe we would save that in a different place, so the bond rating agencies wouldn't set that as a new floor.
Okay, I have a question. I don't have a calculator to add up all these columns, but if the Excel spreadsheet is correct, it shows $98,174,000, assuming.
This is the first time I'm seeing this document. This appears to incorporate, it appears to incorporate all funds, so it's not just
So this is,
general fund.
yeah, I do see this is also in our enterprise funds as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd probably have to go through and break out the enterprise funds from the others. So I'll stick my pen in my question until I do that to see what the actual dollars are.
And we'd like more time to review it also.
Okay, very good. Councilman Vera.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one thing I'd say is we talked a lot about the tax initiative, is that some sort of a tax initiative is going to pass. It may not. I don't think the one we're voting on in November is going to pass if I was a betting person, but something will pass in the future, and it's good for us for whoever the next mayor is, whether it's one of our two colleagues up here or somebody else, whatever, just to put, ourselves on a acknowledgement of that, I mean, lifting it up to 250 with an eye on ultimately getting rid of property taxes, I think will be rejected by Florida voters, but I do think there is an appetite for some sort of property tax relief, potentially a $100,000 deduction. As I've said before, I think that's something that is a reasonable compromise that would have local governments restrain a little bit. And while, maybe we don't have to go Calvin Coolidge, somewhere between Calvin Coolidge and FDR, maybe it's Bill Clinton. So maybe we'll have to do that for the next couple of years. And again, something is going to pass in the future just because of the inflation adjustment of the lack of adjustments in that exemption for homeowners. It's something that people have to take a look at. So just my thoughts.
And in my opinion, it's not if, it's when. I agree.
And again, and hearkening back to our previous conversation, the data we're looking for, this is because as Bill Carlson says all the time, we can't talk other than we're up here. Again, the whole point of that conversation was, it's not a matter of should we have this money in the savings account, whatnot. It's council's fiduciary responsibility of having 100% access and transparency of revenues and expected expenditures, so that we fully understand what the actual dollar figures are, whether one way or another, and then the council makes the decision about whether we're going to allocate those funds or not. So I think I'll make sure that that's clearly what it was intended. Councilman Carlson, do you want us to add something?
Yeah, just because our colleague may end up in Tallahassee, all the business groups that I'm a part of in Tallahassee, I've been telling them, they need to not use this junk math that the CFO and others are using. I mean, they're going after all these other cities and counties that have very conservative boards, but they're comparing the property taxes from a few years ago, to the property tax now, and saying that that's a waste of money. But what's happening is the infrastructure has to grow in Florida as populations grow. And if a population grew by 100%, your infrastructure may have to grow more than that to anticipate the future growth. And so they need to not use junk math on this. And instead, I hope that reasonable people will start looking at using a scalpel. And what they need to do is better benchmarking of cities and counties on financial data, and also maybe prohibit certain things like boathouses. I mean, we need to use a scalpel instead of a huge hammer. A huge hammer is just a political tool. What we need to do is make sure that money is being used on the right things. Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else, let's move on to event and parade budget, item number 2. Okay. Yeah, Councilman Maniscalco and I looked at each other and thought,
He was rather moderate. I would say Eisenhower, though I identify as
Okay, we're spiraling.
FDR.
We are spiraling.
Go FDR.
Okay, administration report as to creating an event parade budget. Who's got that? Who from the administration is going to represent that issue?
That'll be Mr. Fowler again.
Ted Fowler. Audio check.
Up or well,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, what we were talking about is if it, just like with the nonprofit fund or arts and social service or whatever we call it, we should have a budget and a fund for parades so that we know what there's transparency into what services that the city is offering parades and events. And Jamie Adair did his own analysis. I don't know if that one was accurate or not, but it's not trying to be punitive to anybody. It's just trying to provide transparency into what the numbers are, because there are huge amounts of in-kind services being offered by the city, and the city should decide what the criteria is for, just like we do on making any donation. If it's an in-kind donation, we need to make sure that we're making a sound decision on how and why we would make an in-kind contribution to it. Thank you.
Mr. Fowler was under the impression that we were done with him. He's off now. His link doesn't work. He advises that he does have a presentation. He will email it to everyone, and he'll coordinate with each individual office to give a briefing, but it doesn't preclude us from continuing to talk about that.
Yeah, can I just finish that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that we ought to recommend setting up a fund. It can be an accounting fund, but just so we understand and bring transparency to what these costs are per event, and somebody can make a conscious decision. Any event do we provide all in-kind services for every event that comes in the door, or do we only provide for certain ones, and how much is the budget? Because there's potentially real dollars behind these. Even if we're asking police to take off a different day so they can work on Gasparilla, there's still an opportunity cost in that.
Yeah, my only concern is what's your phrase, Councilman Vera? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is that because a lot of our this is my observation. I may or may not be accurate, but a lot of our staff is and how we do these special events is it's just another duty that they have on that particular day. Other work duties as assigned, and not necessarily an actual definitive extra cost. It's tough. I mean, obviously we are an event and parade city. We love our events and we love our parades. I just don't know, is the creating the bureaucracy really worth it? And to what end? I mean, are you going to be the council person that's going to say we should not promote or have, Gasparilla? I think
It's not about Gasparilla.
I have a dear friend that was mayor at the time, and that didn't work out well for her.
It's not about Gasparilla, it's just providing some criteria for how you would decide. So what happens if something new comes in?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It just seems like a bureaucratic nightmare, and a lot of it would be problematic. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It just seems like is the juice worth the squeeze? Councilman Bureau.
I have a question. Would this also, Councilman Carlson, go to the idea of people being concerned that stormwater funds are being spent on the parades, and to address that? Does that have any relevancy to that?
Yeah, I think that's where it
Yeah, 'cause that's-
originally came up, but let's say that, I don't want to make up one, especially this late at night, but, like, you know, my ancestors were Swedish, so let's say that somebody comes and says, hey, we want to have a big Swedish parade. What criteria do we use? Do we put in 20,000 in pro bono, or we put 250,000 in pro bono? You know, what's the criteria that we use?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a legitimate question to ask. I mean, I don't even know what that would.
When I was working with the city of St. Pete in the mid-90s, a Russian sculptor came in, and he had a 12-story high iron sculpture of Columbus, and at the bottom was the 3 ships. And the mayor at the time and everyone said no, but can you imagine, the problem is there are ideas like that come through all the time. Imagine if St. Pete had done that, they would have had to take it down now.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, should we just wait for Mr. Fowler's presentation, have that individual discussion, and then we can carry it? Okay. So I'm going to put this one to rest. Does anybody in the public wish to speak to this item?
Good evening, Stephanie Pointer. It's not about the money. It is not about the money. It's the fact that they spend 5 weeks a year for one of the stormwater crews working on other things. We want to have fun. We want to have events. But how did it ever become appropriate to pull people off of stormwater to work a parade? I just don't understand it. And none of this is about money, because Jamie has already done all the homework. And that 5 weeks is straight from staff. If you'd like, email me. I will send you a copy of where the mayor said, these are lies, and somebody on staff said, we can't disprove this because it's true. That's not my words, that's staff. When somebody pulls public records, then we have all the data. And sometimes I don't have all the data, and sometimes I don't get to the end because I don't have a secretary, I don't have a legislative aide, I don't have anybody but me, myself, and I, and maybe Carol Ann sometimes. And sometimes I run out of time because I don't think of things until late. But the bottom line is, Jamie's given you a heck of a lot of information. He had 350 pages of 350 documents that he pulled on this particular item. And he has done the homework. It should be parts of Parks and Rec as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I don't know anything. I just come down here and hang out all the time. But it's not about the money. It's about them being able to clean storm drains. And every time we get up here and we say, they're cleaned every 7 years, I'm going to get the BS flag out and throw it. Because there's stuff that hasn't been cleaned in years and years and years. And nobody's doing it. So where's it done? Oh, we clean these ponds monthly. Bull! Y'all come on over. I'll take you to Bobby Hicks Pond. You can see that nothing's been cleaned up around that thing for at least 2 years. It's a mess. So it's about the manpower doing what they are trained to do and what they are in the budget to do. Not about whether or not we should have a party. Because I like parties.
Start with your name.
My name is Pam Canella, and I agree with everything that Stephanie said. There's at least 56 events and parades. It's about the stormwater crew man hours. Not about the money, it's the man hours that we need in our stormwater department to be cleaning, maintenance, and repairs. How many times do I have to say that? It needs cleaning, maintenance, and repairs. This is why we have flooding. It's a fact. Show me that it isn't, because I've shown to you many pictures where our storm drains have not been cleaned. I have yet to see anybody from staff show me that I'm wrong. And it does say on, I'm a little bit tired, so you'll have to excuse me. But on that document that James Adair gave you all, it does tell you how many hours, I believe, that it takes to put up the Gasparilla Parade. Multiply it times 56. That's more than, I think, 5.5 weeks or whatever Stephanie said. It's a lot of manpower that we could be using in our stormwater department. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Tate, start with your name, please.
Fran Tate, East Tampa. I agree with everything that Stephanie said. I'm still concerned about the project on Broadway and 56, the $1 million project. That needs to happen. I went down there. I talked to the business owners. They said they didn't know if anybody coming to them and asking about the project. I went down there and I talked to them. Now, if I was talking to the wrong persons, show me the right people to talk to, because there's no way.
Remember, this is about event and parade. So this is about.
But I saw the word stormwater.
Event and parade budget.
All right. Excuse me?
Thank you.
Michelle Master Totaro. I did actually get an answer about this. Might not be the greatest answer of why they use stormwater people, but I did ask the question, and it's due to, which I don't agree, but I think they can find other people to do it and educate them. Apparently, the pillars that they have to put up could kill people, and only stormwater know how to handle the equipment to get these, I guess, the bleachers, but it doesn't excuse, you know, they can teach other people. They don't need to use stormwater staff. And I think that's where it's all going wrong, if they can train other people. Like the flooding. Remember when the flooding happened? They didn't train people with the pump stations to turn them on and off. Half of the people flooded. So now, we need to train other people. Get rid of stormwater from doing it, make them go back to where they're supposed to and work where they need to at the very crucial time before hurricane season. And then I think everyone will be happy. Me just saying, don't take the stormwater staff. Teach other people. Can they do that? Because that's what George Cox told me, the reason why they take them. So,
Thank you, Michelle.
hopefully that's helpful.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, that concludes that. Let's talk about RFQs, for Tampa Fire and Rescue. Councilwoman Hurtak.
This was my motion, and I believe I already received an answer, but I'm just going to let staff speak to it. I believe the answer for why it wasn't posted is because we're pausing CIP projects due to Amendment 3, but I will allow the chief to.
Good evening again, Council. Barbara Tripp, Tampa Fire Rescue. As far as what I've been informed of, that this project has just been put on hold until after the November situation.
Okay, so that's what I thought. But now we have a official answer, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilman Bureau, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just to have something like this that's so important, that's gonna open up Station 9 for a growing West Tampa, that's gonna help fleet maintenance for Tampa Fire Rescue to be put on hold. I could have a bunch of questions on this, including for funding sources that we had, but I made the mistake of canvassing today for an hour and a half after doing a deposition, and I'm really tired. So it is hot out there, and it just sucked the energy out of me. So I'll throw another day. So there you go. Thank you, ma'am.
We need to encourage you to canvass more often.
I know.
I was going to say the majority of it, because we just have the supply part of it. Lamb is overseeing the actual, I guess you'd say the assessment and everything, so.
Okay. Very good. Was there anybody in the public wish to speak to this item? Oh, no, we have new business. Well, I mean, I think that Councilwoman Hurtak suggested that we look at a additional meeting. I think that needs to be discussed.
So I also thought about this during our break. And so on the 27th, we do have a full agenda, but it would enable us to not, we only actually have 3 staff reports. It is full, but it would enable us to not have to have a whole nother meeting.
I would like to remind folks that the 27th could potentially be a very interesting meeting.
Yes.
I mean, if you guys are ready to buckle up for it, I mean, we could potentially have stormwater, no, this is the term.
I'd have to go look at I have to go grab my calendar. Ms. Sharf, if you could bring my phones.
I mean, well, let me ask you this. Is there any appetite to schedule an additional workshop pending, prior to the first public
8th,
hearing?
which is the 8th of September.
And if there was one, if we had to schedule something, I would think that would have to be like the 1st. Not the 1st, I'm sorry, the 31st.
That's Labor Day.
Is that Labor Day?
Yeah.
Why isn't that on my
Thought it was
calendar? No, Labor Day is the week after that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, 31st.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Councilman Vera.
Yes, sir, thank you. I mean, I'm of the view that maybe we could do this on the 27th, and for that other thing we were talking about, we could have a special call meeting.
What other thing?
Well,
yeah.
it's either stormwater, potentially a raised deal.
Yeah.
I have asked staff about that today, and they know nothing about it.
Well, I mean, they have time. It still could be put on our agenda, so we don't know.
Well,
Councilman Carlson.
No, but have they put just the South Tower project will take up the whole day because there'll be hundreds of protesters.
Correct. Well, I mean, is there any appetite for adding a meeting on the 31st? Of August, August 31st, 9 a.m.?
I'm mediating a case that day, and I'm a mediator, I can't.
Okay.
What day of the week again?
It's a Monday.
And and when is?
I could.
The 8th.
What about Tuesday?
I'm in Missouri for work, for like legal practice that day, visiting clients. Now, guys, I believe.
Yeah, we could do it at 5:01.
Depends on the day of the week, because there are boards that have been noticed for that. We'd have to clear this room.
Clerk, can you tell what's going on the 31st or the 1st? No?
The 24th is a week from today.
What's our legal requirement for notification?
That's sufficient.
What is the purpose of the meeting, and
Well,
why a whole meeting?
I would suggest that we would either do the reports that Dennis has owed us on the questions that we had asked, and I suspect that we would probably need to deal with one of the other 2 issues that day.
Maybe the 31st is better then. But, I mean,
If I may.
why don't we think about it, and we can talk about it at the end,
Thursday.
on Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Yeah, so why doesn't everybody just kind of?
But Thursday night would be too late for the 24th.
Thursday night would be the
20th.
The 20th. Darn close. I'd feel more comfortable giving it more time.
So if there's any appetite for the 24th,
No.
we'd do it now. If not, then we can wait till Thursday night.
Let's wait till Thursday
Yep.
night.
And if I
Okay.
may,
So we can check with the clerk and everything.
Okay.
For Thursday, I think I'm mediating 2 cases that day, but if it's evening, I can definitely do it. And then the 31st, I sent a memo out that I'm going to be out for a lot of meeting. My mom's turning 78 that day. We're going to have her birthday, but I am returning afterwards in anticipation of
On the 20th?
no, this
31st.
Thursday evening.
Thursday evening.
I'm sorry. Yep, I'll go.
Thursday
Yeah,
evening,
my
yeah,
mother's
okay, yeah,
birthday.
you know,
But I will be back.
No, we got that memo. And if the clerk could look at and be prepared to give us advice and counsel at the Thursday evening meeting on the availability of council chambers, that would be great. Maybe just look for that entire 31st for like a week or so. Is there anybody else that has any new business they would like to discuss?
No.
Hearing none, I have a motion to receive and file from Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We're adjourned.